Chapter 51. The tablet brought back by Levi was repaired. The video on it was identified by Tony and there were no traces of modification. After inquiry, the download address of the video is the intranet of SHIELD. Maybe there were areas of s.h.i.e.l.ds server that Tony hadn't visited, so Tony invaded again. This time the invasion was so thorough that he almost pulled s.h.i.e.l.ds pants out. Not only did they find many shady plans, but they even found evidence that Nick Fury had embezzled public funds. As Tony invaded the s.h.i.e.l.d server, he discovered that things were not simple. During Alexander Pierce's tenure as S.H.I.E.L.D. director, a lot of money disappeared. He also saw a lot of the technology developed by s.h.i.e.l.d on Bucky's metal arm. After a period of investigation, Tony finally found a video on an old server of SHIELD. It was the video of Tony's parents being killed. Tony looked at the video with eyes wide open. After turning off the video, Tony said angrily, "Now we have the evidence that HYDRA killed my parents. The only thing left is the evidence that Alexander Pierce is HYDRA." As for Alexander Pierce, Tony doesn't have a good idea. After all, he is the liaison of the World Security Council. With this level of status, he is destined not to be killed casually and buried in a trap. 26 For a long time, Levi and Tony looked at each other and said in unison, "FK him." Levi said, "It's easy to get rid of him. At this stage, we just need to suspend the other party, and the evidence does not have to be true." Bucky. Tony had already thought of the plan, and then said, "Keeping Zhongji is the right thing. This is not the first time you have said that." Tony nodded solemnly, "This time it's true. In that case, let's start preparations." Levi turned to look for Bucky, still needing Bucky's cooperation. Tony stopped Levi, "There is one more thing before that, we also need to get Nick Fury to cooperate with us." Levi confirmed to Tony, "Let him participate." "Yes, we helped him clean up HYDRA. You can imagine that after HYDRA is cleared, s.h.i.e.l.d will be his Nick Fury family." After leaving the laboratory, Levi went to find Bucky first. Bucky usually goes to the gym in the Stark building. Some of the fitness equipment here are specially prepared for Bucky. Ordinary equipment has no training effect on him. "Bucky." Levi looked serious. Bucky instinctively felt something was wrong, but he calmly asked, "What's wrong?" After telling Bucky the heavy truth, Bucky suddenly fell silent. "I'm sorry, I really don't know those things. My memory of that time is not clear. I didn't expect that I actually killed my friend." Bucky showed a look of pain. Li Wei shook his head and said, "You are just the executor, we have found the real murderer." Bucky's face suddenly turned ferocious, revealing a fierce look. "Who is it?" Bucky, who has cut his long hair, looks more like a lion with explosive hair. "Alexander Pierce." "Who is that? Wait, I really want to." Bucky felt like he was remembering something and kept tapping his head. Fortunately, he still had sense and didn't slap his head with a metal arm. Former director of SHIELD, now appointed as liaison between s.h.i.e.l.d and the World Security Council. High official. Bucky's eyes became dangerous, and he said bitterly, "I have controlled me for so many years, and I don't know how many people have been killed by me. Damn it, I want this guy even if he is the president." Levi never expected that the resentment in Bucky's heart was so great. It's not easy to directly assassinate him if he is involved with the World Security Council. He will be ordered by the World Security Council to pursue him to the end. Tony and I have already thought of other ways to deal with him. Any solution? This requires you to play a show. It's not about bringing him down, you just need to suspend him. How? I will cooperate. Tony will arrange it later. I see. After leaving the Stark building gym, I called Nick Fury's phone. Nick Fury's voice came first on the other end of the phone. "You killed an agent. HYDRA agent. We haven't confirmed if he's HYDRA yet. I confirmed it for you. Wang Defa. You sent a female agent to play with my feelings and I haven't settled the score with you yet. You are truly a ruthless gentleman. If you still have some humanity left in you, go rescue Natasha Romanoff. We have determined her location." "Okay, I can agree to save Natasha Romanoff. I also need your cooperation on something. About Alexander Pierce. So you know everything." Nick Fury was silent for a while and then said, "Tell me about your plan." His identity means that he cannot use low-level methods. Levi informed Nick Fury of the plan. Nick Fury quickly agreed. Seeing Nick Fury's happy agreement, Levi also decided to do something happy and set off to a safe house under the name of S.H.I.E.L.D. in California, where Natasha Romanoff was being held. Levi also didn't expect that in just a few days, Natasha Romanoff would be transferred to California, which is in the west of the United States, and New York is on the east coast. The straight line distance between them is about 4,900 kilometers. Fortunately, the S.H.I.E.L.D. plane that Levi occupied earlier was fast enough and landed in California in only 3 hours. Arriving near S.H.I.E.L.D.'s safe house, Levi used the electromagnetic pulse developed by Tony to paralyze the surrounding cameras, and then directly transformed into Kamen Rider Joker to kill all the agents here. All that could be arranged by Alexander Pierce were HYDRA agents within SHIELD. After Natasha Romanoff saw Levi breaking in, she also knew that her identity was known to him. But as an agent's basic quality, she did not show 283 embarrassing expressions. Natasha Romanoff was not tortured here, just imprisoned. Maybe HYDRA also wanted to subdue this female agent. Thanks. You are welcome. Levi drove all the way to the airport with the rescued Natasha Romanoff, and then returned to New York without stopping to avoid a long night of dreaming. On the plane, Levi looked at Natasha Romanoff without any concealment. You are also very beautiful in this outfit. Natasha Romanoff smiled charmingly. You don't mind? Definitely not, it's your job to figure out what I like. Well, you know what I'm talking about. I think I know some of your other preferences. Then I really want to see it. How about I take it as a thank you for coming to save me? Let's not mention some indescribable things that happened on the plane. A few days later, the World Security Council received a video, and the content of the video made the members of the World Security Council furious. It was a monologue by former Howling Commando, Bucky Barnes, describing how he killed 2 Stark couples while being controlled. The former is one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a great scientist and entrepreneur, while the latter is also a genius professor and scientist. Finally, Bucky Barnes named the person who controlled him. This is why the Security Council is angry. Their most trusted contact ever, Alexander Pierce. Chapter 52. After deliberation by the World Security Council, Alexander Pierce was suspended for investigation and replaced by Maria Hill. During this period, although Nick Fury did not find conclusive evidence that Pierce was HYDRA, many clues indicated that there was something wrong with Pierce, and Nick Fury had to take it seriously. If there is a problem with Pierce, then there may also be a big problem with the Insight project he proposed to lead, and perhaps more clues can be found there. Nick Fury has been suffering from baldness recently because he had no hair to begin with and it was all replaced by a beard. Phil Coulson, how are you doing there? Nick Fury contacted Phil Coulson. We have found it and are preparing to dig out the captain. Move quickly. It won't be long before his former teammates will be reunited with him. Phil Coulson wondered, you mean Bucky Barnes? Some things have happened recently, and I feel that it won't be long before this old man, who has just emerged from 70 years of ice, will go back to the battlefield to fight against his former enemies. I'll speed it up. Phil Coulson said and ended the contact. Not long after Nick Fury put down his phone, Maria Hill knocked on the door and walked in. Director, the World Security Council needs S.H.I.E.L.D. to bring Winter Soldier back to confirm whether the incident is true. The news brought by Maria Hill was as expected by Nick Fury. Nick Fury responded, I have asked Natasha Romanoff to negotiate with Stark, and there is a high probability that she can be brought back. Maria Hill had just taken over the responsibilities of the liaison officer. She was not sure what Nick Fury meant, so she simply asked, then how do I reply? Just say that Stark has been appeased, and S.H.I.E.L.D. will temporarily control Alexander Pierce. Although Nick Fury was a little confused in his heart, it was not impossible to take advantage of this. After all, there are still many HYDRA agents that have not been cleaned up. Nick Fury called Alexander Pierce, and his words were full of comfort, saying that he would send someone to protect his old boss. Alexander Pierce accepted it calmly and said that it was time for his brother to retire at such an old age. This incident would allow him to take the opportunity to retire. At the same time, he urged Nick Fury to implement the Insight plan as soon as possible. After hanging up the phone, Nick Fury said to Maria Hill, the Security Council still needs time to investigate whether the incident is true or not. If it is true, then the World Security Council will also be embarrassed this time, so the Security Council should not want this matter to cause trouble. Is very large, there is a high probability of choosing silent processing. Alexander Pierce used the HYDRA spies within the Security Council to already know that it was the Stark brothers, but he could not figure out the meaning of Levi's actions. According to his original plan, the Kamen Rider and Nick Fury should fight first. After killing Nick Fury, the former director took over S.H.I.E.L.D. again. On the other hand, Nick Fury has increasingly felt that there is something wrong with his old boss's insight plan. News of Alexander Pierce's suspension soon reached the ears of Tony and Levi, and Tony decisively let Bucky and Natasha Romanoff leave. Now Tony is not in the mood to do anything else and is focused on revenge. It's just that it's probably difficult for Winter Soldier to come back after leaving. Tony really had a complicated heart towards Bucky, with feelings of gratitude and hatred, and in the end he could only sigh. 2 days later, Nick Fury has conclusive evidence proving that Alexander Pierce did misappropriate some resources and use them elsewhere during his tenure as S.H.I.E.L.D. director. It is not clear who he gave it to, and the other party was hidden so deeply that he left almost no trace. Only Nick Fury can do this kind of thing, but no one else can. What's more, the evidence about Pierce is basically conclusive, and now there is only one more reasonable evidence left. Nick Fury knows his old boss's cautiousness and superb acting skills. The other party will never leave direct evidence, but indirect evidence is sometimes enough to suppress dead man. Nick Fury dialed Tony's phone. "Tony, how are you doing with the algorithm I gave you? It's very similar to Winter Soldier's mind control chip algorithm. Where did you get it? Don't worry about where they are from." Nick Fury took a deep breath and simply told Tony and Levi that Pierce was surrounded by some HYDRA agents. This simply meant that they could do it with confidence. The person who helped Nick Fury investigate all this was sitting in Nick Fury's office at the moment, crossing his legs and watching him on the phone. Seeing Nick Fury hang up the phone, the man smiled and said, "Dirty disaster." Nick Fury shook his head, "This is good for everyone. They want revenge, and I want to clean up HYDRA. And the evidence indirectly points to Alexander Pierce." Nick Fury took out a document from the drawer and threw it to the other party. "Frank, I have investigated what you said and found out that the person is currently Willi Constantine's subordinate." "Who is that?" "It's just a dirty organization that specializes in kidnapping and forcing Eastern European women into prostitution. I'm going to kill them." Without any explanation, the scarred-faced strong man named Frank left directly. This Frank also has a title, called the Punisher. At the moment, after getting Pierce's position, Tony and Levi naturally acted immediately without any delay. Levi transforms into the Emperor of Heaven, and Tony is equipped with the strongest battle suit at this stage, Mark 8. Mark 8 is made of a large amount of Luna metal and Asgard's Uru metal. The color is mainly golden red, supplemented by some black on the waist, chest, and arms. This armor, Wang Hao, was also named Revenge Armor by Tony today. The two immediately set off to a secret shelter of SHIELD. This place is specially used to protect some special talents who are targeted. However, it is not a secret place now. A total of 24 agents are guarding here. "Sitwell, what do you mean by Nick Fury? Is it an accident that our agent was purged?" Pierce sat at his desk with a thoughtful look on his face. The bald agent said respectfully, "Maybe your position on the World Security Council is too important. You know, Nick Fury is so capable that without him we might not even be able to build a heli-carrier. Now the first one is ready to fly. The launch of the Insight project is not far away." The bald agent said enthusiastically, "HYDRA will definitely reappear in the eyes of the world." Chapter 53. What's the news from S.H.I.E.L.D? Pierce asked calmly without much fanaticism, and the Security Council. The bald agent informed him of the news he had just received. Except for Phil Coulson who is out on a mission, SHIELD is basically focusing on the Winter Soldier. The Security Council is still waiting for news from Nick Fury. Pierce touched his chin, feeling that something was not quite right, but it was very reasonable. He couldn't help but said, "Bucky Barnes has really recovered his memory. After all, he is in the hands of the genius Tony Stark, so it is not surprising that he can recover his memory. But here's the strange thing. Why did Tony let S.H.I.E.L.D. take Bucky away after knowing that Winter Soldier killed his parents? With his character, he should keep Bucky. And Kamen Rider, Califris said the plan before. If it succeeds, Kamen Rider should switch sides. The bald agent rolled his eyes and suddenly said, after Califris was sent out to perform the mission by Nick Fury, the Kamen Rider has been silent. Pierce frowned and asked, has Califris contacted anyone recently? Where is Black Widow? The Black Widow has been rescued, and Califris has not contacted anyone. It is normal for the Black Widow to be rescued, but something is not right about Califris. Pierce was startled, and the recent events flashed through his mind, and he connected these things. Suddenly his eyes trembled, and he exclaimed 797, it's broken. Sitwell looked at Pierce in confusion, wondering why the leader was so crazy. Idiot. Iron Man and Kamen Rider wanted to FK me from the beginning to the end. Nick Fury must have some evidence to implicate each other. They first suspended me, removed my troublesome functions, and placed me in this place is also for convenience and just to facilitate their next actions. Are the agents here all our people? Sitwell looked confused. How could he know? There are so many Hydras in S.H.I.E.L.D, but only a few of them are familiar with each other. If you don't take the initiative to reveal your identity, you won't know if the other party is one of your own. Let's go. It's very unsafe here. Boom. A fierce explosion sounded, and the thick reinforced concrete wall like a city wall was blown open. Two figures walked in along with the smoke and debris. Iron Man. Kamen Rider. Pierce couldn't help but tremble when he saw these two people. Levi broke the neck of the person he held in his hand and threw it aside as if he were throwing away garbage. Tony raised his hand and pointed the palm cannon at Pierce. You can't kill me. The World Security Council will not let me die like this, Cab. Pierce was panicked and angry, and said sternly, Stark, once I die, do you know the consequences? I killed terrorists and HYDRA spies. The former SHIELD director will always live in the hearts of every S.H.I.E.L.D agent. Nick Fury will also find you a nice tombstone to commemorate you. Tony opened his mask, the hateful and gnawing eyes made Pierce tremble all over. Levi looked at the panicked Pierce calmly, before that, I just want to know why HYDRA assassinated my parents. Pierce laughed crazily, the fact that your parents can perfect something like infinite serum is enough to prove that their ability is no longer inferior to Howard Stryker. If such a genius cannot be recruited into HYDRA, then he must be killed. You deserve to die. Tony stopped hesitation. Boom. Beam fired. The light cannon penetrated Pierce instantly. Levi also set up flight attackers to sweep wildly, and Sitwell was also beaten into a sieve by the light bombs. Bucky has pretty much cleaned up those people outside. Levi turned to look at Tony. Tony didn't show the kind of relief that a great revenge had been paid, but instead frowned. Revenge makes you unhappy. I just lamented why that smart old man was plotted and assassinated by such a person. It's easy to dodge open guns and hard to defend against hidden arrows. Let's go. After getting rid of Pierce, the two of them didn't forget to clean up the place. The so-called cleaning means blowing it up directly, leaving no residue at all. With a violent explosion, Levi and Tony rushed out of the underground nursing home. Outside, Winter Soldier leads a group of armed teams wearing tactical vests to attack the HYDRA agent here. HYDRA agent showed no resistance in front of them. Ability, Weze and Bucky found many familiar faces in the team. Hawkeye, Black Widow, Melinda May. It's so cold-blooded. They already knew that their enemies this time were these former colleagues, but they still mercilessly killed these S.H.I.E.L.D traitors. Tony said to Levi. Standing opposite Bucky, Tony looked at him with complicated eyes. The HYDRA inside has been solved. See you again when you have a chance, old guy. Bucky also knew what it meant and nodded towards Levi. Just after Tony and Levi left, Bucky led the team to clean the battlefield and then left here. News of Alexander Pierce's death spread quickly, and the World Security Council demanded Tony's trial, especially the American congressman who made the most noise. No one can let a hard-working former director die. U.S. Congressman angrily accused Nick Fury. Nick Fury did not waste any time and directly presented the evidence, announcing all the embezzlement and unidentified money that Pierce had committed since he was in office. By the way, he also disclosed the similarities between the Insight Project algorithm and the algorithm that controls Bucky Barnes' chip. At this time, the other party lost his voice. At this time, Congressman Hwaguo said, Iron Man and Kamen Rider are understandable. After all, the sworn hatred of killing their father only has a bad impact. The director can handle it himself. After speaking to Nick Fury, the Huguo congressman said to other colleagues, the Alexander Pierce incident should be announced directly to the top leaders of various countries. After so many years of development of HYDRA, there may be people at the top of each country. Please do your own self-examination. It's not your territory anyway, so it's none of your business what happens. What's more, there might be HYDRA among them members of the Security Council now. I think we should suppress the news of Pierce's death for the time being, and wait until all the HYDRA that may be hidden in S.H.I.E.L.D. is completely uncovered before making it public. Nick Fury was not so strong when facing this congressman. You are S.H.I.E.L.D. director, you make your own decision. Representative Huaguo said that was no problem. The American congressman glanced at the Chinese congressman, then turned to Nick Fury and asked, "Is Bucky Barnes in jail?" "Why jail a victim?" Nick Fury asked rhetorically. The US congressman replied, "We need to know who he killed while he was under control. We owe this veteran a lot, and now he is waiting for another veteran to wake up." Nick Fury defended Bucky, "What's more, the situation in S.H.I.E.L.D. is not very optimistic now, and there is a serious shortage of manpower. Bucky can fill an important position." Counselor Deng asked in surprise, "What have you done recently?" A legend was unearthed. The Russian congressman said, "I hate it when you only speak half of your words." Chapter 54. Leaving aside Nick Fury's side for the moment, Levi and Tony were back to normal after a few days of recovery. The production of the Leo Cavalry continues, and now a trial version has been produced. After testing by FEU, the strength of the Quan Leo Cavalry is 1.5 tons, and the kicking power is only a pitiful 2 tons. For FEU, not only is it not enhanced, it is not as good as his AO Fei Enoch form. However, at this stage, due to production material issues, Leo's cavalry belt can only be used by AF Enoch. Improvements are needed to make it usable by humans. Due to some technical problems, Leo's cavalry was very different from Livy's original design. It is even different from the Leo cavalry that appeared in Kamen Rider 555. The only similarities may be the appearance and color. Mass production is also a problem now. I am definitely talking about mass production only to make 3 or 4 pieces. The cost is too high. Tony is also a little worried. If an ordinary human uses the Leo cavalry belt, it may be directly reduced to ashes by the power of the belt. Levi said, "Is there a possibility that the photon flow channel can be completely eliminated? Leo riding does not need to be matched with other equipment like Delta and Wei Emperor. In that case, many parts can actually be reduced." Tony frowned, "That would just mean making do for the sake of making do, which was too imperfect. I feel the need maybe it can actually improve hand-to-hand combat performance. Try it first. At worst, all the prepared weapons will be equipped with independent photon drives." The two of them were immersed in the experiment. Feu had nothing to do and could only wander around the building alone as usual. Now that Bucky is missing, there is really a lot less fun, and there is no one to talk to. While the two brothers were concentrating on the experiment, on the other side of S.H.I.E.L.D's medical department, a man who had been frozen for about 70 years woke up. The first time the old man woke up, he saw his former good brother. "Bucky. I'm here, Steve. I'm so glad you're okay." Steve felt his face stiffen, but he still managed a twitching smile. But Bucky shook his head, "I'm not very good." Steve was stunned for a moment, then recalled the scene. He remembered that this good brother seemed to have fallen off the train into a cliff, and he himself had also crashed. "So? Are we dead?" Bucky was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly, "I might as well be dead. But it's so good to see you. Listen, Steve, you've been asleep for 70 years. 70 years. Steve suddenly sat up in bed. At this time, the door opened, and a bald man who looked like a social elite appeared outside the door in a suit and leather shoes. He walked in quickly and said excitedly, "Captain, it's great to see you." "You are?" Steve asked in surprise. Bucky took the initiative to explain, "He is the one who dug you out of the ice." "Oh. Thank you." Steve expressed a friendly greeting to Phil Coulson, "I didn't expect anyone would still remember me after 70 years. No one will forget your contribution, Captain." Like a child, Phil Coulson took out a treasured card, handed it to Steve, and said shyly, "Can you sign it for me?" Phil Coulson stayed in the ward for a short time, and after he left, Steve also started asking Bucky how he was doing. In particular, why Bucky has an extra metal arm. Bucky originally didn't want to mention these things, but he didn't want to complain about them. He told Steve everything about how he had been controlled by HYDRA over the years, had done some assassinations, and how recently he had finally been vindicated and killed the culprit. When Steve heard that his friend Howard Stark was killed, he was silent for a while, and then after hearing what HYDRA had done, anger burned in his heart. I feel very sorry for the two brothers of the Stark family, especially since they did not choose to judge me, which makes me suffer even more. Bucky told his friends all his recent feelings. Steve first comforted, I think they also sympathize with your experience. Then he changed the subject, I didn't expect that the world would change so much after 70 years. Maybe what Howard said is right, and future generations will realize what we dare not think of. HYDRA, Orphanok, Vampire, it's really exciting. Shortly after Captain America woke up, after S.H.I.E.L.D. eliminated most of HYDRA, there was a serious shortage of personnel and problems with department operations. Captain America and Bucky were captured and became members of SHIELD. But even if two veterans came forward, they couldn't be used by many people, so many students who had not yet graduated from S.H.I.E.L.D's internal academy were taken away by Nick Fury. Please give me flowers. It's not that he hasn't thought about asking Levi and Tony to help, but they are both busy studying something and have no intention of paying attention to him. Fortunately, during this period, even if the S.H.I.E.L.D department was not operating stably, there were no major problems, and everything was developing for the better. That's probably it. Dr. Eric, please repeat that again. Fury stared at the only eye. The dark face coupled with the abrupt whites of the eyes is extremely scary. Dr. Eric shrank his neck and said, I mean the Tesseract is emitting weak gamma rays and is also receiving sporadic external signals. What was received? It should be from the same source as the gamma rays he originally released. So Barton guessed it right. Dr. Eric wondered, Barton, that archer? What does he guess? If the Tesseract is a door, can the door be opened from the outside? Eric also felt that there was some truth, but not much. Just as he was about to speak, the Tesseract's energy suddenly began to rise. Other researchers quickly reported, Director, the performance of Tesseract is rising sharply. I've seen it. Nick Fury pulled Dr. Eric and hid behind a console, looking at the light emitted by the Tesseract, and a dark hole appeared in front of him opposite the light. A figure walked out of the cave entrance. His eyes are full of evil, his body is thin, he has long hair with slightly curly ends, and the scepter in his hand exudes a faint light and is similar in color to the Tesseract. Who are you? Put down your scepter. Nick Fury shouted. Loki, a god. Loki showed a standard Dragon King smile. Nick Fury sneered, I have never seen a god like you come uninvited. This is very disrespectful. The people of Midgard are so noisy. Loki said with hatred. If the people on Earth hadn't caused trouble, he would have killed Thor long ago. Go. Catch him. Nick Fury asked his men to arrest the other party. Loki raised the scepter and instantly released a blue energy wave, knocking down a group of agents in the blink of an eye. Chapter 55. Call out at this time, an arrow was fired. Loki took a step back slightly when he heard the sound. The arrow grazed Loki's face, but Loki noticed a black line at the end of the arrow. He stretched out the black line and looked, and saw that a bow was already facing him. The door is coming. Loki raised his scepter to block, only to hear a muffled sound and both sides retreated. It's just that Loki reacted faster, took a step forward, and tapped Hawkeye's chest. Hawkeye's brown eyes were quickly covered with a flash of blue. Get rid of that loser who works as a miner for the Dark Elves. Loki ordered Hawkeye. However, Hawkeye looked at Loki for a long time and then asked, what is the Dark Elf? Loki took a deep breath. If he didn't need manpower now, he would have to kill the elf archer Chi Lu Chi. That's the black coal. Loki pointed at Nick Fury with authority. Hawkeye acted immediately, turning his bow into a melee weapon and throwing it at Nick Fury. Seeing that Hawkeye was being controlled, Nick Fury could only deal with it in a panic. Although he could counterattack 1 or 2 times, he was eventually defeated by Hawkeye with the American IAI slash. Boom! There was a gunshot, and Nick Fury fell to the ground, staring blankly at the black muzzle of the gun. While the two were fighting, Loki took control of Dr. Eric again, then removed the Tesseract and wrapped it with magic. Let's go! Loki left with his new men. Just after they left, Nick Fury took a deep breath and sat up from the ground. He opened his windbreaker to reveal a dark body armor. It is indeed the body armor that saved Tony's life. Nick Fury stood up. Now things are getting serious. If the Tesseract is used by that Norse god, the consequences will be unimaginable. Phil Coulson. Nick Fury took out the communicator and called Phil Coulson urgently. Phil Coulson received the message and immediately replied, "Roger, Director." The Tesseract was snatched away, and Hawkeye and Dr. Eric were also controlled by the enemy. Now, the war between humans and aliens begins. Have 2 veterans on your side ready to run at any time. Battlefield. I understand, Director. Nick Fury hung up on Phil Coulson and contacted another capable person. The right person is naturally the Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff. Barton is controlled by the enemy, and now you need to call in a powerful foreign aid. Natasha Romanoff had no idea what she was doing, and then there was a scream on the phone. Natasha Romanoff took the time to ask, "What's going on with Barton? And I don't necessarily know the foreign aid you are looking for. Can you please come back? You know I haven't seen Star for a long time. Big money and college student Phil Coulson is in charge. I need you to bring back the big guy who doesn't care about the world." I understand. Natasha Romanoff hung up the phone. At the moment, Phil Coulson came to Steve's house and knocked on the door, and soon heard Steve's voice letting him in. Opening the door, Steve and 2 Bingjenglu were watching the ball show on the double sofa. "Phil? What's the matter?" Steve saw that Phil Coulson's expression was serious, so he asked, "You don't look good." "It is indeed a serious matter." But Bucky smiled and said, "Aliens invaded the Earth. These past few days have been the happiest days since he left HYDRA." Phil Coulson unexpectedly nodded. Steve and Bucky looked incredulous. "You know I'm joking." Bucky thought sincerely. He hoped Phil Coulson wouldn't make a joke to deceive the 2 old people. Phil Coulson gave a reminder, "Don't you remember that thing Tony and Levi dealt with last time in Mexico? You mean the one in Norse mythology?" "That's right." "Oh shit." Steve looked confused, but now Phil Coulson could only ask Bucky to explain to him. He has a more important thing, which is to go to the Stark building. Now, Dr. Banner has regained his freedom and returned to Culver University to continue working as a professor. However, he is monitored and protected by S.H.I.E.L.D. to prevent him from becoming emotionally unstable and turning into the Hulk. Dr. Banner's freedom was obtained by Tony using War Machine and the military last time. Dr. Banner was very grateful to Tony for this, and the 2 geniuses of different types had a deep intersection. Phil Coulson drove quickly to the Stark building and learned from Pepper that Tony and Levi were still struggling in the laboratory and had been struggling for a long time. Pepper was still a little resentful about this. If the 2 were not cousins, she would have begun to wonder if Tony had changed his gender. Phil Coulson came outside the laboratory, knocked on the door and didn't hear the sound inside, but now he didn't care about higher etiquette, so he opened the door and entered. However, it didn't matter that he entered the door, but it caused a very embarrassing scene. "I saw Tony and Levi squatting next to a very familiar person." Phil Coulson asked awkwardly, "What are you doing?" Levi raised his hand expressionlessly to tell him to look at the 3.2 notebook in his hand, and Tony also raised a belt connected to many lines. "Then why hang him up?" Phil Coulson pointed at Flying Fish. Tony replied seriously, "I'm afraid he will struggle." "So you are conducting experiments on humans, right?" Levi said sternly, "This is biased. We are obviously conducting serious experiments. The premise of human experiments is individuals." "So?" Phil Coulson smiled and was about to say something, but was interrupted by Tony with a wicked smile, "Now that you have discovered it." Li Wujian smiled and answered, "Then I can't let you go so easily." Chapter 56. The Mark of Enoch is just a deception. It actually consumes the user's physical strength. As an agent, Phil Coulson, your physical strength should be very good. Tony said as he implanted a small chip into Phil Coulson's neck. "It's impossible to say that I wasn't nervous. Although I didn't feel any pain when a cut was made on the back of my neck, it was done by a guy without a medical license. As an agent, no one should doubt my professionalism, but given my age, my physical strength is definitely not as good as that of young people." Phil Coulson tried his best to divert his attention. "Don't worry Phil Coulson, we are very confident. Once successful, you will be a superhero with 2 tons of punching power and 4 tons of kicking power." Levi followed suit. Phil Coulson became even more nervous when he heard this. Unexpectedly, after young Phi Enoch over there withdrew from the experiment, he would become the subject of the experiment. Will this enhancement turn me into the Hulk or a monster like the Abomination? Phil Coulson was horrified. Okay, the implantation is complete. Tony26 wiped off some blood on his hands. The chip he implanted into Phil Coulson was less than half the file size of a fingernail, and it was only implanted into the epidermis. Levi picked up the belt connected to various pipes and wires and put it on Phil Coulson's waist. What is this? It looks like a Kamen Rider belt. Phil Coulson was actually very curious about this belt as soon as he entered the door, but he was caught before he even asked. Levi replied, the performance of Leo Cavalry is not as good as Kamen Rider, but it is used as a mass production model. Mass production? Phil Coulson didn't expect the brothers to play such a big role. Tony explained, it is said that it is mass produced, but actually the cost is not low. 2 of them are enough to buy an island. So how many are you going to produce? It depends on how well you experiment. Okay, press the device on the belt buckle to transform. Levi urged. Phil Coulson's questions were too nonsense. In desperation, Phil Coulson put his hand on his belt buckle and asked hesitantly, is everything okay? Tony looked determined, it's okay, it won't be life-threatening. We have minimized the risk. If you don't believe it, look at Fiu. That guy's laboratory was blown up in the first place. Hearing what Tony said, Phil Coulson was even more worried. Finally, Levi held his hand and pressed the device on the belt buckle. The moment the belt buckle closed, Phil Coulson felt the chip on the back of his neck was slightly hot. Immediately afterwards, the metal photon channel diffused from the belt, completely covering the body in just a few seconds. With the light emitting from the chest, Phil Coulson's transformation was completed. This trial model has improved appearance and hardware. The photon flow channel has been cancelled. The armor made of Luna metal and Asgard's URU metal is harder. The photon blood and stabilizer are placed on the chest and protected by the armor. At the same time, it relies on the Luna metal in the lining to transmit photon blood to circulate in the limbs. But in this way, the performance of Leo's cavalry is completely fixed, and it can only exert a fixed value of power. How do you feel? Tony asked. The power has been strengthened, but I don't know why. I feel a little angry and have a desire to destroy. Phil Coulson seemed to lower his tone, and he was trying to control himself. Levi recorded in detail that Phil Coulson's situation is indeed different from that of Fiu. Maybe it's because of the difference in identity between humans and AF Enoch. AF Enoch originally had a desire for destruction. When he first transformed, his mood was unstable and his desire for destruction was strongest. Later, he could control it after he got used to it. The strength of the new AF Enoch is also at its weakest, and then there will be a period of rising strength, and finally it will stabilize. Phil Coulson, you need to adapt first, and be sure to control your emotions, otherwise it will be easy for the belt to inspire destructive desires. Tony and Levi began to unplug the wires and tubes from their belts. Phil Coulson moved his body and found that all aspects of physical fitness were greatly improved, including hearing and vision. However, as the transformation time went on, Phil Coulson felt more and more tired and often exhausted his energy. Levi and Tony could even hear Phil Coulson gasping. To release the transformation, just click the safety lock and pull up the buckle. Levi taught Phil Coulson how to operate it. Phil Coulson cancelled the transformation, and after recovery, he sat directly on the floor and panted, "This is more tiring than running 10 kilometers. There is a price for such a huge increase in strength." Tony felt that it was well worth it. This time the trial version only needs to be optimized before it can be used normally. Only then did Levi remember that Phil Coulson came to see them for something. "So Phil Coulson, what do you want to see us for? I almost forgot about the delay." Phil Coulson told the 2 of them that Loki had snatched the Tesseract, and then took out his mobile phone and sent a piece of information to Tony. After watching it with a projector, Tony suddenly realized, isn't this the Superboy plan with black braised eggs? Why is there Captain America? You guys also got back this old popsicle. I personally brought the frozen captain back. Phil Coulson was still a little proud. It would be nice if you were so proud to participate in my experiment. Tony turned off the projection and finally replied, "Help you once. Last time so many people died in the New Mexico town, Loki should pay the price." Levi also nodded in agreement. Phil Coulson has completed the task, and it will be up to Black Widow to see if he can convince the big guy. At the same time, after reporting the alien invasion and stealing the Tesseract to the World Security Council, Nick Fury once again proposed to launch the Avengers plan. This time, the World Security Council did not stop it. For alien invasion, the Earth really needs to show its ability. The trump card played. Nick Fury got the approval of the World Security Council and immediately went to find Steve and Bucky. "Where are you taking us?" Steve also knew that he was going to prepare for the war. "I promise you'll be surprised, Steve." Nick Fury was confident. Steve smiled and said, "I bet you $10 that nothing will surprise me." Nick Fury smiled and said nothing. Not long after, Nick Fury took the two of them to an aircraft carrier. This aircraft carrier was the space carrier originally prepared for the InSight project. 4 were originally planned to be built. Now that the InSight project has been cancelled, there is only this one left. As director, Nick Fury could not stay longer and entered the command room directly. Black Widow also brought Dr. Banner to the aircraft carrier to meet Bucky and Steve, and introduced Dr. Banner to them. Black Widow reminded, "Everyone, please go in quickly, it will be difficult to breathe here later." Steve looked confused. "Can this aircraft carrier still dive? I think it might be more serious than that." Bucky felt something was wrong. He saw many people on the tarmac evacuating. "Then let's go in, I don't want to drink a lot of seawater." Soon the fans on both sides of the aircraft carrier turned and the aircraft carrier began to take off. What do you think the combat effectiveness of such a big computer radiator can be? Levi and Tony were flying in the sky and looked down at the aircraft carrier taking off. Tony commented, "Just hit 4 turbines and it will fall from the sky. It's a useless type." Chapter 57. Tony, who was wearing a steel battlesuit, and Levi, who had transformed into the Emperor of Heaven, landed on the deck of the space carrier and walked towards the entrance. The people standing in the command room of the space carrier did not feel that they were rising at all, they were very stable. As expected of Nick Fury. This space carrier is the crystallization of human wisdom and took many years to build. It can be said to be the top technology on Earth today, except for a country in Africa that pretends to be backward and defrauds the United Nations of aid. "Hey, everyone!" Tony put his battlesuit on his legs and greeted the guests in the room. Levi cancelled the transformation and nodded to Dr. Banner. The two joining in made this place more like a class reunion, and Captain America was naturally the first person Tony paid attention to. Tony Stark. Steve Rogers. The two shook hands, and Bucky walked up to Levi and thanked him. "I didn't expect to be fighting side by side again so soon." Levi whispered, "Don't blame Tony for pretending not to see you. You know, on the one hand, you saved him and Pepper before, but seeing the scene of you killing his parents made him feel extremely sad. I hate you, I feel grateful and hate you at the same time. With such complicated emotions, I can only ignore you deliberately. Being able to be in the same room is Tony's best answer." Bucky sighed, "I am also very grateful to Tony, who took me in. Those things were not my wishes, not to mention that Howard and I also had intersections. In addition, I also want to thank you for your forgiveness." Levi and Tony tacitly transferred most of their hatred to Alexander Pierce, otherwise this matter would not have ended so quickly. "Tony and I are different. He was how old when his parents died, but I was how old when my parents died. Definitely, if it weren't for you, maybe I could have had a wonderful childhood with parental care. Bucky is even more autistic now. I think every time I think of Levi in the future, I will think of him having a miserable childhood." Then Bucky felt that the food in his mouth no longer tasted good, so he suddenly gave himself a big mouth and muttered, "I really deserve to die." At this time, the door to the room opened again, and Phil Coulson walked in. A special device could still be vaguely seen on his waist. "Phil Coulson, what is that?" Natasha Romanoff asked curiously. Phil Coulson did not dare to say anything, but said in a low voice, "The big money gave it to me, so I can go to the front line this time. I prefer the nickname Playboy." Natasha Romanoff was very close, and no matter how quietly Phil Coulson whispered, Tony could hear it clearly. Captain America also saw some shadows of Howard Stark in the unruly Tony. He regretted that he would never see Howard again. The chatter is getting louder and louder, changing from class reunions to buying food at the vegetable market. The door to the room opened again, and Nick Fury walked in and said seriously, "Dear students, the break is over, and class has begun now." The scene was very awkward for a while, and everyone looked at Nick Fury. Nick Fury also felt a little embarrassed. There were 2 outstanding scientists here. Okay, everyone, I mean we found Loki. Where's Barton? Black Widow didn't care where Loki was, but asked her good comrade first. No traces of Loki have been found. Currently, traces of Loki have only been found through global cameras. He appeared at a party. Everyone, get ready to go and arrest this alien. However, Nick Fury's seemingly powerful attack order made everyone look at him like a fool. Only Dr. Banner opened his mouth and responded in an imposing manner, yes. Seeing that no one answered, Dr. Banner smiled shyly, I thought you would all respond. You can set off in the Quinjet. This is S.H.I.E.L.'s latest fighter, it's very fast. After Nick Fury finished speaking, he left without looking back. It's hard to lead a team full of freaks. Steve changed into his Stars and Stripes uniform, and the equipment was still the familiar buckler that Phil Coulson had prepared long ago, and everyone else was also ready. Just as they were about to leave together, Phil Coulson suddenly remembered something and said to Dr. Banner, Dr. Banner, you need to go to the laboratory to help us find traces of Tesseract. Why? Dr. Banner looked reluctant. Because you are the only one who understands gamma rays best. Black Widow answered. Another point is that the Hulk transformed by Dr. Banner is not stable. Tony's current steel battlesuit has reached Mach 1 at full speed, which is faster than the Quinjet, so he directly puts on the steel battlesuit and sets off first, while the others set off in an orderly manner on the Quinjet. Quinjet is piloted by Phil Coulson. By the time everyone arrived at the venue, a wave of people had gathered outside the venue. A slender man wearing a horn helmet was standing at the top of the steps and talking, his words full of contempt for human beings. That's Loki from Norse mythology. Captain America asked in surprise. Otherwise, Levi didn't think it was anything. Captain America commented, like an acrobat in a circus. Joker. Leeway smiled, don't underestimate the other party. Loki was enjoying the beautiful scenery of this group of humans kneeling down and surrendering, when an old man stood up and said angrily, you are a madman. Joker. The clothes you wear are like hospital gowns in a mental hospital. Loki showed an evil smile and his eyes were sharp. He felt that he had been insulted. No one has ever dared to insult him like this since he was a child. Loki raised the scepter and pointed it at the old man, firing a blue beam. Boom. Bang. A strong man descended from heaven. A round shield directly blocked and reflected the light beam. As the people screamed, the light beam shattered the statue in the square. Everyone looked at this macho man and thought he looked so familiar. At this time, a stronger beam cannon struck. Boom. Loki was knocked out. Captain America looked up and saw that it was Tony. Tony mocked, look, there's a Bambi here. Levi also seized the opportunity, transformed into a Joker, and landed directly on Loki. Riding on Loki, he waved his fists wildly, so fast that Captain America could only catch his shadow. Loki's face was bruised and purple, and all of Scepter's power, Zhao Di Hao, exploded. A blue wave wheel flew Levi away. Loki stopped pretending, his eyes were bloodshot, and he roared furiously, damn it! No one can do this to a god. Levi landed on the ground with a somersault, took a step forward, and jumped up with a night kick. Loki gathered energy again and wanted to give Levi a hard blow, but then a shield flew towards him. Loki had to stop casting spells and use his scepter to block the shield. Boom! The shield hit the staff and bounced back into Captain America's hand. At this moment, the night kick has reached Xin. Loki raised his hand to block, but the power of the knight's kick was not easy to block. Loki couldn't bear the huge amounts of force and was kicked away. He fell straight into the fountain not far away. His legs fell outside and his entire upper body fell into the water. Gudu gudu. The water was bubbling, and Loki was lying in the water with a lifeless look on his face. Bucky loaded a rifle, pointed it at Loki's forehead and said, "You're under arrest, alien Joker." Chapter 58. Loki was lifted out of the pool by Bucky and a pair of handcuffs were cuffed on him. The victory was somewhat easy, which made Captain America have to wonder if there were any other conspiracies. After all, this Loki is known as the god of lies and mischief. On Quinjet, Captain America expressed his concerns. Tony felt that his side was strong enough and Loki was not qualified to use conspiracy in the face of absolute power. Natasha Romanoff thought of her old comrades and asked, "Where's Barton? Did he ask Barton to do something?" And Dr. Eric doesn't know where he is hiding. Phil Coulson felt that it was necessary to let this god feel the torture of Earthlings. Quinjet flew at full speed, but at this moment a thunder sounded in the sky, and the fighter plane suddenly shook violently. We have a guest. Tony looked at the lightning flashing outside and already guessed who was coming. A person directly removed the tail door of the plane and got into the plane. Seeing many eyes staring at him, his originally serious expression suddenly became awkward. Hey, brother, we meet again. Thor greeted Levi with a familiar look. Then he nodded to Tony again. I said I would come back. Tony looked at Thor for a long time before saying, I thought you would leave your mother's cloak at home before coming back. Sir, you sabotaged our plane. Captain America stared at Thor. Loki on the side looked like he was just watching the fun and didn't take it too seriously. He wished 673 could be beaten to a bloody head by everyone. Thor frowned and said, no one can arrest a prince of Asgard. Obviously this made the Asgardians look bad. He killed a lot of people. Captain America said plausibly, without any fear of the other party's identity. Thor's eyes suddenly wandered, okay, he is adopted. Asterisk. The scene turned cold for a moment, and Levi broke the silence, are you here for Loki? Yes, at first I thought this guy had fallen to death. Heimdall only discovered Loki's whereabouts recently. Father Odin, who learned about this, asked me to come to Midgard to bring Loki and the Tesseract back. Thor said. Tao Lai. Phil Coulson said firmly, he must be judged by humans on Earth. The Tesseract is human. Seeing Phil Coulson's tough attitude, Captain America admired it very much. This is how he is not afraid of power, so he echoed, that's right. You can't take Loki back if he kills someone. The judgment of mankind. Thor warned like a lion about to go wild, no one can punish the son of Odin. The Tesseract was originally placed in Midgard by my father. Phil Coulson's words reminded Thor of what happened when he lost his divine power. For a moment, the atmosphere became tense again, and Li Wei couldn't understand why the atmosphere suddenly became like this. Hey, we don't need to talk about this now, this Bambi still has a lot of things to explain. Tony felt that starting a fight on the plane might not be good for everyone. Captain America also agreed, let's go back to the space carrier first. Thor also temporarily calmed down under Levi's persuasion and returned to the space carrier. Loki was taken away and imprisoned, but the location of the Tesseract has never been found. It didn't take long for everyone to figure out the reason why Loki appeared at that party. It was actually to let his men seize the iridium element, and he was to attract attention and create opportunities for his men. Do you know why Loki did this? Captain America looked at Thor, who was pacing back and forth. Thor stopped and said, I only know that he has an army of Chitauri. Loki came to Midgard this time just to capture it. I think we should focus on the Tesseract now. As long as the Tesseract is found, the alien fleet cannot reach the Earth. Dr. Banner gave advice. Okay, alien invasion. Nick Fury pointed to Loki's scepter and said, I remember when Loki walked through the door opened by the Tesseract, the color of the scepter bloomed was the same as the Tesseract. Maybe we can find some clues through this scepter. Captain America looked at Tony and Dr. Banner. In his eyes, only two genius scientists could do it. I'll give it a try. Tony took the scepter and headed to the laboratory. Dr. Banner quickly followed. Wait for me, Tony. Arriving at the laboratory, the two began to analyze the structure of the scepter. Dr. Banner asked, why did Loki go to so much trouble to seize the iridium element? Tony replied, iridium can be used as a stabilizer, CGCD, maybe to make the Tesseract's energy more stable. Portal. Not only can the portal be maintained longer, but it can also be expanded larger. Dr. Banner nodded, suddenly thought of something, and asked, oh, I just forgot, where did Levi go? Tony was stunned. It seemed like he hadn't seen Levi since he returned to the space carrier, but with Levi's strength, there wouldn't be any surprises. Don't worry about him, anything can happen to him. At the moment Levi, who was being talked about by the two doctors, was standing outside the cage looking at Loki like a monkey. I don't like the look in your eyes. It's like you are looking at some rare species. Loki also glared at Levi. This kid has done a lot of bad things. Levi looked at Loki with a sarcastic look on his face and said, did you know that there is a place on Earth called the zoo? Many precious animals are penned there for people to watch. You are almost the same as them. Loki was so angry that he slapped the special glass of the glass cell with both hands. Wow, what a big temper. Levi still looked at him like a monkey, deliberately irritating Loki. It's not bad that a god from Asgard can show me a look, and I don't need to buy a ticket. You have to buy a ticket to go to the zoo. Do you think you can't compare to the animals on Earth? Damn boy! How dare you insult me like this? I will kill you when I get out. The way Loki gritted his teeth made Levi feel happy. You mean you asked Dr. Eric to arrange the tesseract on the roof of Stark Tower to open the portal? Loki's eyes widened when he heard this, and he said in shock, how do you know? I don't know anything. Levi took out his mobile phone and connected it to the monitor arranged in advance on the roof of the Stark building, but the monitor screen was completely empty and there was no one at all. What? This time it was Levi's turn to widen his eyes. Things are not going quite right. Ha 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 ha. Loki said with a look of success, you are so smart. You and Thor are both the same kind of fools. Levi looked at Loki and smiled disdainfully, forget it, let's send a drone to check. The tallest buildings in New York are basically all in Manhattan. If they're not in the Stark building, they're in other buildings. It's just that Loki didn't choose the most iconic Stark building, which surprised Levi. Levi looked at the continuous pictures transmitted by the drone controlled by Jarvis. Soon the drone transmitted a picture that made Levi couldn't help but laugh. This is where the Osborn building was originally located. You are very good at choosing. Loki sneered, so what if you knew? Levi raised his lips, walked to the side of the lever and pulled it down. He heard a scream, and the cell fell down with Loki. That's all. Levi was about to transform and go to the Osborn building to retrieve the tesseract, but with a boom, huge amounts of tremors came from the space carrier, and soon sirens were heard everywhere. Chapter 59. Let's see if you die. Levi spat towards the cell where he fell. Turning and entering the corridor, he wanted to see what was going on. You could see hurried figures everywhere. Levi grabbed one person and asked what happened. Only then did someone answer that it turned out that a turbine propeller had been attacked by an external force and had now stopped spinning. When he rushed to the command room, he heard the sound of bang 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 before entering, and the sensor door opened automatically. Levi saw a big man in the room pressing the button the red hoodie was hammering. Hulk! Levi exclaimed and quickly transformed. The lost drive exposed at the waist quickly transformed into eternity. Bang! The unicorn memory was loaded and punched Hulk in the waist, sending Hulk flying away. Levi! Thor was relieved when he saw the rescuers. He quickly got up, picked up the hammer and swung it towards Jack's stomach. Hulk smashed the wall and was hit directly into the corridor with a hammer. Where's Tony? Levi asked. He said he was going to repair this battleship. Thor's eyes were locked on Jack, who got up and the expression on his face became more ferocious. He was still a little frightened. This big guy is too powerful. How could he, Thor, the son of Odin, be afraid of fighting? On the contrary, his blood is boiling now. Hulk! Levi roared, it's you. He didn't forget that he was slashed by this little white thing before. Jumping up, a huge fist hit the two of them in the face. Levi rolled away and jumped into the air with one foot. Night kick. Thor swung the hammer like a spiral prize and smashed it towards the Hulk's jaw. Bang! Bang! He kicked the Hulk on the waist. Thor leaned over to hide, and hit Ernir with his hand directly on the Hulk's lower collar. The Hulk flew backwards and smashed through the wall again, unable to get up for a long time. Are you going to destroy this space carrier? Nick Fury said with a dark face as he poked his head out from behind a wall. Levi said disdainfully, how long have you been hiding there, you coward? Thor looked surprised, you are so dark that you are a coward. The dark elf is as dark as you, but he is very brave. FK. I really shouldn't have come to see you. And your damn brother has already followed the cell and fallen from a height of 7,000 meters. Nick Fury left immediately after saying that. He had already seen the Hulk standing again. Woke up. Loki ran away. Thor wanted to chase Loki, but the big man in front of him obviously didn't want to let him go. Levi was curious as to why Thor's first reaction was that he ran away, so he asked, aren't you afraid that he will fall to death? Throw my insidious brother to death? He was a necromancer. Thor knew how cunning Loki was. Levi said angrily, then put him in the cell and you didn't say anything. You said it was specially made. That's specially made for this big guy. Bang! As soon as the Hulk came, Levi and the two jumped back to avoid it, and the ground was smashed open, revealing the passage on the next level. The two stood on opposite sides, one attacking the Hulk at the same time. The Hulk spat out a mouthful of blood with a tooth in it, and slapped the two charging men. The powerful palm wind forced the two men back. Thor stood still and summoned thunder and lightning to hit the Hulk. The Hulk flew backwards again, and Levi took the opportunity to add another punch. He put his fists together, clenched them tightly, and hit the Hulk directly on the back of the head. This heavy blow made the Hulk unable to get up for a long time. Thor saw that the Hulk was still unable to stand up, so the battle was probably over. "I'm going to find Loki." Thor was about to turn around and leave when the Hulk suddenly jumped up, with a crazy look in his eyes, grabbed Thor's ankle and pulled him to the ground. The battle was so fierce that Levi couldn't even aim to hit anyone. The Hulk became more courageous as he fought, and Thor was not to be outdone. Soon the two of them fell through the bottom of the space carrier. The space carrier, which had just taken off not long ago, suffered heavy losses this time. Tony and Captain America, who had repaired the space carrier's turbine, rushed back. When Levi explained the matter, Captain America could only shake his head helplessly. Two teammates had already been lost before the war officially started. Not long after, Black Widow grabbed Barton's ankle and dragged Barton back. Barton was on the ground, his face was in direct contact with the ground and was rubbed all the way. I don't know if he would put a mask on his face first when he woke up. Phil Coulson and Bucky also came back at this time, and brought good news: the Tesseract has been found. Levi asked calmly, "Are you in the Osborn building?" Phil Coulson was stunned and asked, "How do you know? Please give me flowers." Levi released his transformation and took out his mobile phone to show everyone the photos taken by the drone. "Did you push Loki down?" Nick Fury came up to him at some point. Levi glanced at the braised egg and immediately retorted, "What do you mean by pushing it down? The cage you made can be controlled by throwing it down. So you weren't there before to tease Loki." Tony didn't realize that Levi was so boring, so he might as well go find the Tesseract together. Captain America looked at the location identification given by Levi and felt that it was best to act immediately, so he said, "Now that we have found the Tesseract, let's set off." When everyone was preparing to take action, Phil Coulson suggested, "Do you need a slogan before setting off?" Tony laughed, "Just like the Happy Boy is ready to attack? It's like the cartoons of the 1980s, so stupid. Since you are part of the Avengers project, then." Nick Fury was thinking about announcing a slogan as the person in charge of the project, but Captain America said first, "Avengers. Attack." Captain America took the lead, Winter Soldier followed Captain America, Tony and Levi followed one after another. Black Widow glanced at Nick Fury and then at Levi, and finally decided to follow the large army. Only Phil Coulson looked at his director and wanted to speak. "And?" Nick Fury sighed and waved his hand for Phil Coulson to come with him. Everyone left here, leaving Nick Fury alone and messy in the wind. "Director." Melinda May walked out of the command room. Looking at Nick Fury's back, she felt that something was not right about her director today. "What's the matter?" "Director, that scepter disappeared somewhere." "When did this happen?" "Unclear, the surveillance has been compromised." Everyone took the Quinjet to Manhattan. Tony returned to the Stark building to replace his battlesuit because his battlesuit was damaged while repairing the space carrier. In addition, Phil Coulson also acted alone to pick up Thor and Banner. Tony arrived in Manhattan first. When passing by the Osborn building, Tony was very leisurely and went over to give the machine loading the Tesseract an electric cannon. The beam is blocked by the protective shield released by Tesseract and cannot harm it at all. Tony had no choice but to return to Stark building to find another way. Chapter 60. Returning to the Stark building, Tony took off his steel battlesuit. Since Tony was not damaged by shrapnel, the arc reactor is currently installed on the battlesuit. When taking off the battlesuit, replace it with a new reactor. While waiting for J.A.R.V.I.S to deliver the new battlesuit, Tony was about to have a drink, when a slightly playful voice came from behind. "Won't you buy me a drink?" Tony was stunned when he heard this, and turned around suddenly to see Loki walking slowly with a scepter in his hand. "I'm not interested in inviting a thief who broke into someone else's house for a drink." After Tony finished speaking, he leaned against the bar and drank a glass of wine. "That's really your loss." "This is not a loss. All you have brought us is pain. I am curious, can you survive a fall from a height of 7,000 meters? Tony put down the wine glass, then quietly touched the mark on his wrist with the back of his hands. "The bracelet operates like 7, 8, 7. Loki asked, I am the most powerful necromancer in Asgard. Do you think I will be trapped in a cage? The most powerful necromancer? Have you surpassed your teacher? All my spells were taught by my mother, Queen Frigga. She is the greatest necromancer in Asgard, and I am the strongest one, Loki told with great arrogance. Tony shook his head, I wonder if Thor will give you a hammer when he hears this. Then you have no chance to see it. Loki showed an evil smile and said frankly, it still needs some time, so please go out and block your teammates. Loki pointed the front end of his scepter at Tony and walked slowly towards him. After taking 2 steps, he was suddenly stunned when he saw a mechanical claw protruding from Tony's back. Then Tony took out a belt from behind and put it on his waist. I didn't expect this product to have some uses. Tony pressed the belt buckle, and as the belt buckle closed tightly, brown hard armor and black soft armor spread from the belt to all parts of the body, quickly covering Tony. Tony transformed into Leo Trooper and punched Loki straight in the face. Loki dodged sideways, stretched out his hand to grab Tony's wrist and said angrily, you humans, all of you deserve to die. Tony mocked, you don't think everything revolves around you, you little alien princess. However, Tony underestimated Loki's power, and Loki grabbed his wrist, lifted him up, and threw him out. Tony landed and smashed the smooth floor into cracks. Loki pointed the scepter at Tony, and the blue gem at the front of the scepter condensed out. Oops! Tony quickly got up from the ground and shouted, J.A.R.V.I.S. It's not okay yet. At this time, the gold and red battlesuit was controlled by JARVIS. It broke the glass and flew in from the window, hitting Loki with an energy cannon. Puff the light cannon hit Loki and knocked him away, and the scepter also got rid of it. Tony rolled to grab the scepter, but before he could warm it up in his hands, Loki stood up and kicked him out. Loki cursed, what kind of grade are you using the same power as me? The scepter was obtained by Loki again. This time, Loki did not charge any more energy but instead fired an energy shock instantly. The light bullet hit Tony and knocked him out of the window. Tony fell from a high altitude, and J.A.R.V.I.S controlled the steel battlesuit and hurriedly followed him. While in the air, Tony released the Leo Cavalry transformation and instead let the steel battlesuit attach to his body, and his body slowly sank into the battlesuit. Seeing that he was about to land, Tony quickly started the thrusters to stabilize his body in mid-air. Go back and settle the accounts. Tony flew back in a flash. This time, Tony, who was fully prepared, continued to deal damage to Loki. Loki also fought with all his strength, and the top layer was quickly beaten to pieces. In the end, Loki missed a move and failed to escape JARVIS. Tony, who had predicted his position in advance, hit him with a luminous cannon and flew backwards, hitting the wall. But at this moment, the Tesseract sent a beam of light straight into the sky, the space door opened, and the Chitauri army rushed in through the space door. Da-da-da, the machine gun sounded, and Levi, who transformed into the Emperor of Heaven, blocked the space door and opened fire at the space door. Under the firepower of the flight attackers, not a single Chitauri could land safely for a while. Levi, good job. Hold on a little longer, we will evacuate the crowd quickly. Natasha Romanoff has gone to Dr. Eric to see if the Tesseract can be stopped. Captain America's voice came from the earphones, and Levi was anxious when he heard the words. He shouted, Captain, my weapons have limited bullets. It's gone after the fight. What else? Where's Tony? Quickly connect Tony. Captain America was a little anxious. What's going on with young people nowadays? Don't you know you need to bring more ammunition when you go out to fight? I'm here, Captain, and I'm already with Levi. Tony didn't know when he had hacked into the Avengers voice channel. Captain America quickly said, you must hold on. Quinjet is going to help you. At the moment, the streets of New York are in chaos. Even if the danger is right in front of them, many people still look like they are watching the excitement and don't mind taking refuge. Even the police are like this, completely disobeying instructions, even if it is Captain America. Time passed by one. Black Widow had nothing to do with the Tesseract. Fortunately, Dr. Eric was knocked unconscious by Black Widow. He woke up from the coma soon after and told Black Widow how to remove the Tesseract barrier. Black Widow told everyone this important message through the earphone: the only way to remove the Tesseract barrier is to use the scepter in Loki's hand. Otherwise, even a nuclear bomb cannot destroy this defensive barrier. The shield generated by the space gem cannot be destroyed without the corresponding level of energy. Where is Loki? Captain America asked. If he hadn't left, he would still be on the top floor of the Stark building. Tony said with difficulty. He could no longer withstand the alien attack. There were too many of them. Suddenly, a huge amount of whale-like battleship blocked the space door, and Tony quickly shouted, "Here comes a big guy. The other side wants to use this battleship to break through our firepower network." Barton looked sad. The missile was launched and hit the enemy's 4.6 battleship. It had no effect except knocking off a little iron. Levi's attack flight has no ammunition, and now relies solely on a little energy attack from TND's mobile phone. There's no other way. It's better to go find Loki. As long as you get the scepter in his hand, you can shut down the Tesseract. Boo-hoo-hoo! Huge amounts of shaped warships rushed into the space gate and completely descended on New York. Chidori's army also swarmed in behind the warships. Switching to the rotating stick and sharp blade, the Emperor of Heaven is in close combat in the air, and those Chidori soldiers are no match at all. A child was hit with a stick from the east, and either his head was smashed or he fell to death from a high altitude. But as the number of Chidori increased, the streets were soon filled with fireworks. Fortunately, the efforts of Captain America and others were not in vain, and many people hid in places such as subway stations. Chapter 61. The police struggled to resist the enemies who invaded their homes. Even the street gangsters and gangs were brave, using their own small pistols and machetes to beat the enemies. Street heroes are also fighting in their respective neighborhoods, including the Punisher, Supergirl, Big Daddy, and Daredevil. Kamartaj also sent magicians to help people secretly, pulling a large number of Tori people into the mirror space to solve the problem without being known by people. Of course, there are heroes who help others and bullies who take advantage of others. AF Enoch is the latter who takes the opportunity to assimilate humans. The remaining HYDRA is also secretly causing harm. The largest gang in New York controlled by Kingpin is also quietly fishing in troubled waters in an attempt to obtain some alien weapons. We need Hulk. Captain America looked at the alien whale warship flying overhead and felt deeply powerless. Careful, Steve. Bucky pushed Captain America away and used his metal arm to hold the spear coming from the Chidori soldiers. However, this is not a cold weapon but a weapon that can release energy cannons. The energy accumulated is fired at Bucky. At this time, Captain America rushed over and cut off the spear with a shield. The alien spear exploded, killing the Chidori soldier. Die. Soon more Chidori soldiers surrounded them, and Captain America and Winter Soldier were once again locked in a bitter fight. The battle between Captain America and Winter Soldier is just a microcosm of the battlefield. Phil Coulson and Hawkeye, who transformed into Leo 26 Cavalry, are also fighting. Black Widow is also hiding in the Osborn building to protect Dr. Eric and defeat the ones rushing towards him in the narrow corridor. One Chidori soldier after another. Boom! There was a shaking under Black Widow's feet, or in other words, the Osborn building where she was located was shaking. Outside the building, huge amounts of alien battleships were locked by a blue light cone, and Levi got into the light cone. Blue cobalt electric drill. Boom! Along with the continuous explosions inside the alien battleship, the figure of the Emperor of Heaven appeared at the rear of the alien battleship. After dealing with an alien warship, Levi looked around in the sky. A cloud of smoke and dust was raised in the distance, accompanied by flashes of electric light. He flew closer and was happy to see Thor and the Green Master heading towards this place. Now New York can be divided into two areas. The Osborn building serves as the main battlefield, and the rest is less invaded by Chidori. It is estimated that the current Chidori commander is shouting to kill this group of humans who are the most resistant to ability. Landing next to an old building, there is an ancient clock under the eaves at the top of the building. It was eerily quiet here, and Levi finally had a chance to breathe. Too many enemies. The Chidori were running around, destroying everything in sight. Levi will press the button on his belt, and the holographic projection will appear. It's time. As the countdown in the upper half of the projection ends and returns to 0, a new avatar appears in the lower half of the projection, at the end of several Kamen Rider avatars. After the transformation is released, the belt still changes into a fluid shape. It finally turned into a silver-white belt with a file-sized slot for playing cards in the center of the buckle. Try the power given by that old thing. Levi took out a red card box with a golden bird pattern printed on it. Transform! Levi shouted softly. The card box was inserted into the buckle, and two phantoms appeared out of thin air from Levi's side, overlapping with Levi's figure. A phoenix sound appeared out of thin air, and everything around him seemed to be frozen. Levi's body is also covered with golden and black armor and stomach. The golden bird body pattern on the chest is connected to the shoulders, and the golden shoulder pads are raised like a pair of wings. Kamen Rider Odin. With the golden summoning machine in the shape of a tin stick in hand, Levi took out a card with a golden bird printed on it from the card box and put it into the card slot of the golden summoning machine, closing it with the bird-shaped decoration. Advent. Advent, sound effect came a big bird with a height of nearly 2 meters, a wingspan as long as a sedan, and a body of bright and dark gold was summoned. Golden Phoenix. The big bird hovered over Levi's head, seeming to sense Levi's intention. The golden phoenix rushed towards the nearest group of Chidori, its whole body burning with golden flames, and setting fire to all the Chidori wherever it flew. The bird-shaped decorated wings on the top of the golden summoner unfold like double doors, revealing 3 cards hidden inside: left wing blast, center infinity, and right wing fire. All 3 survival cards are here. He took out 3 survival cards, closed the double doors of his wings, and Levi suddenly disappeared. Just after Levi left, the door of the building next to where he was just now opened. A bald man and an old man came out. What an incredible power! The slightly fat man couldn't help but sigh. The bald man next to him smiled and said, "Odin's power is really interesting. I remember that he was blessed by the eternal god before." The eternal god? The bald man smiled and explained, "A supreme god." The slightly fat man nodded in understanding. Anyway, he has never seen what he said. "King, go get the dragon tooth holy sword collected in the holy place," the Ancient One ordered. "That almost indestructible sword, you are." Wang's eyes were a little confused. What is the purpose of Sorcerer Supreme? Do you still remember that sword? It suddenly appeared in the holy place one day. It seems that the person it is waiting for has been found. So that's it, everything is destined. The Ancient One nodded slightly, and the king left, quickly bringing a long sword with a straight hilt and a golden haze all over it. Taking the long sword, the Ancient One held the hilt in his hand and flattened the sword's blade. He gently stroked the blade of the sword with his other hand and whispered to the long sword, "The person you were waiting for has appeared. Thank you for guarding holy place dedication. Go." Ancient One retracted his hand, the long sword was suspended in the air, and suddenly let out a dragon roar, and then rushed towards a piece of glass. The long sword seemed to enter the water, and several ripples were shaken on the glass. The Ancient One turned around and walked back to the holy place. Seeing this, Wang also walked back, and the door to the holy place was closed. On the other hand, Levi used the power of Kamen Rider Odin to teleport to Black Widow. The scepter was shocked and knocked down all the Chidori surrounding Black Widow. Black Widow looked at the figure that suddenly appeared and tried to ask, "Levi 757." Levi nodded to him and then disappeared again. Teleportation, an ability possessed by Kamen Rider Odin. At the moment, Phil Coulson was still using the Leo cavalry to support himself, and could only barely cope with the siege of more than a dozen Chidori. Boom! An alien grenade fell on the ground and blew Phil Coulson away. A figure suddenly appeared next to him and caught him. Feeling someone catching him from behind, Phil Coulson looked back at the person, Levi. Levi nodded and waved the scepter, and the golden phoenix flew and hovered in the air. As its wings flapped, a hurricane swept up the group of Chidori soldiers and blew them high into the sky, killing a group of Chidori soldiers with ease. The golden phoenix flew away again and continued to clean up the nearby Chidori. "Go meet with the captain and do your best to track Loki's whereabouts. He must be hiding somewhere in New York and watching this war," Levi said to Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson's physical strength is at the bottom, and after releasing the transformation, he calls Hawkeye to leave and meet with Captain America. Levi disappeared again. When he reappeared, the figure landed on the Chidori whale battleship. He inserted a card with 2 swords printed on it into the golden summoner, and the golden summoner turned into 2 sabers and appeared in his hand. Levi waved his saber at the battleship, and the blue light slash and the red light slash were instantly submerged into the battleship. Gale and fire. A few seconds later, the battleship that was flying well suddenly broke into 2 parts. The cross-section was unusually neat, but there was no sign of Levi on the battleship. Chapter 62. The appearance of Levi caused great resistance to Chidori. The dozen warships originally sent to the Earth have been destroyed, and only a few are left. Even the Chitauri soldiers who invaded the Earth are shrinking at a terrifying speed, and the number of soldiers remaining on the Earth is decreasing exponentially. Chitauri's mothership can monitor the survival of every soldier. The heroes of New York are working hard, but the outside world does not think that New York can withstand alien invasion. The World Security Council even proposed using nuclear bombs to directly destroy New York so that the aliens would never come back. It's just that S.H.I.E.L.D. is full of Nick Fury people, and it's impossible to transport any nuclear bomb from the space carrier to bomb New York. The United States will not make fun of its own cities. As a result, the World Security Council was left with nothing but incompetent rage. Angry members of parliament from various countries suppressed the voices of US members of Congress and strangled Nick Fury, who immediately dropped a nuclear bomb. Nick Fury just smiled faintly and immediately hung up the call from the World Security Council. At the same time, Tony, who was searching for Loki's traces with all his strength, finally discovered Loki's traces. The guy was sitting by the swimming pool of a hotel, holding a parasol, lying on a beach chair and drinking wine leisurely, when he happened to be photographed by a surveillance camera. Without further ado, under the greeting of Captain America, Avengers assemble, everyone reunited and went to kill Loki. The Golden Phoenix continued to shine, and fire burned the invading Chitauri. Thor did not return to the team, but instead dealt with a whale battleship with all his strength. Levi suddenly appeared behind him with two swords in his hands. Seeing Levi's posture, Thor felt familiar. Thor was shocked. Father? No, Levi. You also think I look like your father? I think so too. Levi joked. Thor quickly asked, how come you have the power of Odin in you? Levi raised his swords to condense the power of flames and wind, and then said, it was definitely given by your father. Thor concentrated the power of thunder on the hammer with an evil look. I always feel like you are taking advantage of me overtly or covertly. Then the two of them smashed down their weapons together, and the whale battleship fell apart in an instant. Ha ha ha. Thor laughed heartily and said, brother, let's go and kill. Levi didn't want to continue fighting with the soldiers here, so he refused directly, I'm afraid it won't work. Tony and the others have found Loki's location. Now you might be able to collect Loki's body. Oh, shit. Thor had already imagined Loki being beaten to death. Thor swung his hammer and left in a hurry. After Thor left, Levi looked up at the huge amounts of space gate, where Chitauri were constantly pouring in. Although the immortal crow is guarding there will always be some fish that slip through the net and land. When will the nuclear bomb arrive? Levi remembered that there should be a nuclear bomb that Tony changed direction and carried into the space gate at this time. Is it possible that too many things have changed that the World Security Council feels that New York can hold on? Levi jumped up, his figure appearing intermittently in the air, and finally landed on the back of the Golden Phoenix. The Golden Phoenix led Levi to charge all the way, harvesting countless Chitauri soldiers with his double swords, and finally stopped near the space gate. Levi looked directly at the Chitauri in the universe opposite the space gate. At some point, the double swords had turned back into the golden summoning machine. Levi took out a card from the card box and put it into the card slot of the golden summoning machine. As the bird-shaped decoration closes, the sound effect comes final vent. Final arrival. Levi clasped his hands on his chest, and slowly rose up. The Golden Phoenix flew behind Levi, and his legs were inserted into the slots on his back. Levi's whole body exudes golden light, as if the King of Gods has arrived. Slowly opening his hands, with the blessing of 3 survival cards, the Golden Immortal Crow unleashed its full strength. As the Golden Phoenix's light became stronger and stronger, the dazzling golden light bloomed into the universe through the space door. Then there was only a cry of cranes and phoenixes, and the Golden Phoenix rushed through the space door, and its golden light fell into the universe, like the sun. Hot! Boom boom boom! The powerful energy driven by the Golden Phoenix destroyed the Chitauri army on the other side of the space gate. The Golden Phoenix rushes towards Chitauri's mothership. The golden light is like a shooting star. The Chitauri's mothership was penetrated by the Golden Phoenix. All the Chitauri on the earth stopped moving at the same time, paralyzed on the ground like robots without power. The Chitauri are a powerful and groveling warrior race, the product of a synthesis of ordinary organisms and machines. They have a social system similar to a caste system. They were controlled by a mothership that never visited the battlefield and behaved consistently during the war. Now the mothership is suddenly destroyed and the Chitauri in New York are completely paralyzed. The Golden Phoenix in the universe disappeared, and then a baby bird seemed to be born behind Levi. The golden phoenix soared out from behind Levi again. The divine bird reaches nirvana. At the same time, in a certain resort hotel, Loki, who was originally lying on a beach chair, was pinched by the Hulk's ankle by the flying Hulk. The Hulk swung Loki and threw him on the ground more than a dozen times before stopping. The surrounding floor was completely shattered, and there was even a dent 1 meter deep. Hulk spat, "Why are you enjoying it here?" Hulk expressed jealousy. Loki, who was holding half of the goblet in his hand, looked confused and stared blankly at the sky with empty eyes. Slowly, an inexplicable anger appeared on Loki's face, and he shouted, "No! Man! Can! Insult! Humiliate! Me!" Loki just sat up when he saw Tony's palm cannon, Hawkeye's bow and arrow, Winter Soldier's dagger and the sharp edge of Captain America's shield already pointed at him. Tony was furious. Bambi's journey to Earth is over. The others stared at Loki with angry, unkind expressions. At this time, there was another commotion in the sky, and a buried man in a red cloak fell towards this side. "Tony, Loki! Your mama's brother is here!" Boom! The hammer struck Loki squarely in the stomach. Loki lay on the ground, hunched over like a fried shrimp in a pot. The Avengers couldn't bear to look at him, and Tony curled his lips. "Manohau, oh, what a good brother! Loki!" Thor yelled and punched Loki again. He didn't even notice that Loki had been beaten by the Hulk before. Bang! Loki passed out completely. Scepter. Black Widow grabbed the scepter that Loki put on the table, and was beaten like that by Hulk. The table was completely intact. It seemed that Hulk had really grasped the situation. "Tony, you are the fastest, take the scepter and close the Tesseract." Captain America asked Black Widow to hand over the power to Tony. Although Tony took the scepter, he said reluctantly, "I'm not the fastest man here. I definitely mean in every aspect." Just when Tony was about to close his mask and leave, the sky suddenly shed a golden light. "Levi!" Tony said in shock. That was the figure of Levi flying upside down after being attacked. Following the city car, a spaceship with a completely different style from the Chitauri battleship suddenly sailed into the Earth from the space gate. Chapter 63. The spaceship is a ring of huge amounts, loaded with energy weapons. It was the one that fired light bombs just now and took the opportunity to sneak attack Levi. A flying donut. Tony couldn't believe the aliens had this kind of aesthetic. Levi stabilized his body and looked at Yayo, the donut spaceship. At this time, a phoenix cry came, and the golden phoenix's body was burning with flames, and it flew towards the donut at high speed. Boom! The golden phoenix penetrated the donut spaceship like a sharp arrow, and the spaceship exploded instantly. However, a thin, grey-faced man appeared from the explosion of the spaceship, dressed entirely in black. His black robe rustled in the wind, and he was holding a long dark gold sword. Corvus Glaive. Leeway couldn't help being surprised when he saw the enemies rushing out. This is Thanos' general. Isn't this guy afraid that Odin and the Ancient One will settle the score with him? He dares to blatantly send his men to invade the Earth. How dare Thanos? Corvus Glaive threw the war blade in his hand, and the war blade was like a black light, penetrating straight through the golden phoenix. The golden phoenix screamed and fell from the sky, turning into golden light particles and dissipating during the fall. During the whole process, Levi didn't even have time to save him. "Earthlings, hand over the Mind Scepter and Tesseract." Corvus Glaive replaced the war blade, and the blade reached Levi. Leeway was quick thinking and didn't expect that the other party came for the Tesseract. Can the Psychic Scepter understand? After all, 607 was given to Loki by Thanos. But the Tesseract? Odin won't take care of it soon? Does Bifrost want to fix it? But why does Thanos want the Tesseract even if he offends Odin? The Tesseract is right there, go get it. Levi pointed to the machine in the distance. The blue protective cover over there was still there. He wanted to see how Corvus Glaive got the Tesseract. Corvus Glaive glanced at the direction Levi was pointing and noticed that the Tesseract was running and protected by an energy shield. The eyes staring at Levi became sharp, and it was obvious that he also knew that he needed to use his spiritual scepter to break the protective shield. Despicable Earthlings! Where is the Mind Scepter? Where is that loser Loki? Corvus Glaive's questioning made Levi quite unhappy. "You talk too much. I owe you." Before Corvus Glaive could react, Levi had already teleported in front of him, and then slapped him in the face. Snapped. Corvus Glaive glared angrily, swung his sword and wanted to cut Levi in two. However, Levi continued to teleport and changed positions, and slapped Corvus Glaive more than 20 times in a row. Corvus Glaive has rich combat experience and quickly found a way to deal with enemies like Levi who can teleport. When Levi appeared in a position again, the war blade suddenly stabbed. Phew! Kamen Rider Odin's armor is powerful. Although it was not penetrated, the sparks that flew out were like firework. Levi fell from the sky. Take a card from the card box and insert it into the golden summoner. Time vent. At this moment, time stood still, the sound of wind disappeared, the bird stopped flying, and Levi stopped falling and was suspended stably in the air again. Due to the defeat of the Golden Phoenix, the Golden Saber could not come. Without weapons, Levi could only fight with his powerful body. Teleporting and appearing in front of Corvus Glaive, due to the stasis of time, Levi punched Corvus Glaive in the face. Bang! Time resumed, and Corvus Glaive flew out with shock in his eyes. What happened just now? Why did it happen so fast all of a sudden? But Corvus Glaive's injuries healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Corvus Glaive threw the war blade, and Levi teleported to avoid it. However, Corvus Glaive suddenly disappeared and then appeared at the position of the war blade. Fly Thor, right? Levi didn't expect that the other party also had this kind of operation. Sure enough, everyone who can become Thanos has two brushes. He doesn't remember Corvus Glaive's ability. There are too many Marvel characters, so how can he remember so many? Corvus Glaive has rich combat experience and has been fighting in the universe all year round, plus he has weapons. For a moment, Levi was unable to resist. At this time, the Avengers also began to support. The arriving war machine fired its palm cannon at Corvus Glaive, and Thor summoned lightning. Everyone worked together to entangle Corvus Glaive. Tony took the opportunity to use his Mind Scepter to close the Tesseract. As the Tesseract's energy stopped, the space door slowly closed. Corvus Glaive, who noticed this scene, also targeted Tony as his main target. He can heal infinitely, and ordinary strength cannot defeat him. Levi shouted to Thor. Thor roared angrily, and lightning suddenly appeared all over his body. Then let him try the power of endless thunder. As Thor swung Mjolnir, thunder poured out and enveloped Corvus Glaive. Corvus Glaive screamed. As the thunder dissipated, Corvus Glaive, whose entire body had been charred by electricity, fell from the sky. Thor is invincible. Thor felt that he had won. However, a war blade flew towards Thor and stabbed into Thor's chest. Levi saw this and pushed you away. The war blade fell, and Corvus Glaive, who had recovered quickly from his injuries, appeared next to the war blade and grabbed his weapon. Corvus Glaive grinned, "You can't defeat me." "That's not necessarily the case." Tony's voice came from behind Corvus Glaive. This battle suit integrates photon blood. The battle suit can convert the photon blood into high-temperature rays, which can instantly melt a tank. Hiss! The high-temperature ray melted Corvus Glaive's body instantly. Corvus Glaive watched in shock as his chest melted, and then his entire body turned into a pool of liquid and melted to the ground. Solve. Tony smiled proudly, "We still have to wait and see what the genius Dr. Stark invents." Levi is about to collect the war blade. This war blade is a trophy, maybe it is made of some special material. The dark gold war blade exuded a strange light, and then the light flashed, and a black shadow entered the liquid on the ground, and Corvus Glaive was resurrected. The war blade stabbed straight at the nearest Levi. However, at this moment, a black spot quickly sprinted on the floor-to-ceiling windows of the surrounding buildings. Then the sound of breaking glass came. A long sword flew and knocked the war blade away, and then the long sword curled up in front of Levi. "This is..." Corvus Glaive teleported to the side of the war blade, and Levi held the hilt of the sword at this time. The long sword vibrated, releasing milky white light, shrinking its body, and finally turned into a card box and appeared in Levi's hand. Looking at the faucet on the card box, memories came to Levi's mind. The long-haired man lay on the ground covered in blood. He ran over and shouted, "Shinji! Lee! You are special! You will definitely be able to transform this time. You have to win." Shinji took out the card box and pressed it into Levi's hand, tremblingly saying the last words before finally losing his voice. The card box is the Dragon Knight card box. Levi took out Odin's 3 survival cards and inserted them into the Dragon Rider card box, and then touched the transformation. The Odin card box turns into particles and dissipates, and that bit of Odin's power has disappeared. Take out the Dragon Knight card box and Levi takes a deep breath to transform again. This was also the first time that everyone saw the source of Levi's power. Usually he would suddenly come up with a new piece of equipment. Chapter 64. Transform. As several phantoms overlapped on Li Wei's body, and with a flash of light, Li Wei transformed into a warrior with mostly red soft armor on his body and silver and black hard armor on his chest. The faint red eyes under the horizontal grid mask have a hazy feeling. Taking out the survival card that he had saved before, Levi inserted the survival fire card into the dragon summoner on his arm. As the dragon's mouth closes, the survive sound effect comes out. Levi's appearance changes again. The red soft armor turns to black, and the breastplate becomes sharper and more complete, making the overall look more burly. The dragon summoner on his arm also changed its appearance, becoming like a pistol. Dragoon survival form. Corvus Glaive looked directly at Levi, holding the long pole of the war blade with one hand, pushing the tail with one hand with the other hand, and the war blade shot towards Levi. Levi raised the dragon summoner, inserted a card into the handle, and the dragon summoner turned into a scimitar. Dragon blade. Levi turned sideways to avoid the flying war blade, seized the opportunity, and the dragon sword blade fell down. Ping! The war blade was cut in half with one blow in an instant. Corvus Glaive has arrived, and Levi kicks the opponent in the stomach, sending him flying away. Levi swung the dragon sword blade, the scimitar restored Jackie Chan's summoning machine, and Levi took out another card and inserted it into the card slot. Advent. Then a dragon roar fell from the sky, and a red oriental dragon circled and flew over. The dragoon rushed towards Corvus Glaive, bit him in one bite, and carried him flying into the air. Shoot vent. As Levi inserted the shooting reed card, the dragoon threw Corvus Glaive into the sky, and then spit out a high-temperature flame of up to 7,000 degrees from the dragon's mouth and instantly melted Corvus Glaive. Is this solved? Will he continue to be resurrected? Captain America looked at Levi, who was showing off his power. According to Captain America's current strength ranking, Levi is definitely number 1. His soul resides in that war blade. Now that the war blade is damaged, he should not be able to be resurrected. Li Wei was not sure, so he let the dragoon fall to the ground and melted the war blade with flames. After repairing the knife, everyone is relieved. The space door is closed, Loki is captured, the alien invasion is over, and everyone is happy. At the moment, in a palace-like spaceship in the universe. How is Corvus Glaive? A strong man with purple skin asked sitting on the throne. A slender octopus-bearded alien replied respectfully, after entering the Earth, we fought with the natives of that planet, and Corvus Glaive was defeated. The strong man's gaze seemed to be devouring people, and the slender subordinate was suddenly frightened, and he quickly knelt down and said, I will send Proxima Midnight to Proxima Centauri immediately. It's expected, Thanos. There's no need to send people to die. A female voice came from the strong man's mind. If Levi comes here again, he will definitely recognize this strong man, who is one of Marvel's villains, the Purple Potato Demon. No need, Corvus Glaive will not die so easily. Thanos waved his hand and asked the octopus magician to retreat. After his men left, a graceful black figure appeared in front of Thanos. The face of the graceful figure can be vaguely seen clearly. She has some thick smoky makeup, willow eyebrows, and almond-shaped eyes. She is a rare beauty. The cosmic cube is on the Earth. As long as you find the cosmic cube, you can use its power to find my identity. Once the seal is broken, you can see me. The beauty sat on the strong man's lap and hooked her fingers with him. The chin is soft and the words are seductive. Death, I will definitely rescue you. Then together we will bring endless death to this universe. Thanos said with a slightly obsessed smile. Death held Thanos's face and said, go and collect infinite gems, otherwise you will not be able to deal with the cosmic cube, even if it is not complete yet. The Tesseract is in the human body? Is that Earth's Kamen Rider right? Yes, I feel the power of eternity. Coupled with the other person's ability, it has the same origin as the guy who sealed me. As he spoke, hatred appeared on the death expression, eternity represents rebirth, and infinity represents hope. Now that he has eternal energy, he only needs infinite energy to make the cosmic cube complete. Just like eternity and infinity are your opposites, but the Earth has the immortal Odin and the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One who are also my opposites. My power cannot be established on the Earth. Thanos is still somewhat rational. The little guy named Corvus Glaive has some death energy in his body. That energy can save his life. Let him collect the infinite gems of the earth. As long as he collects all the infinite gems, half of the plan will be completed. Be patient. After the Battle of New York, the weapons used by the Chitauri became hot spots for competition. Even the other 4 major gangsters in the world have not forgotten to take a share of the pie, but Sam will not compromise easily. Please give me flowers. The World Security Council did not forget to intervene in the Avengers plan, but was rejected by Nick Fury, especially since there was an alien prince in it. If it was not handled well, the sovereign country would be called in to teach him a lesson. Uncle Sam is currently in a serious situation and has no intention of caring about the superheroes. The superheroes who participated in the Battle of New York are also celebrating their victory together in a certain restaurant. As Thor broke the wine glass, the atmosphere reached a climax and everyone became drunk. A few days later, Thor took the Tesseract and held Loki by the hand, using the Tesseract's energy to return to Asgard. As for the Psychic Scepter, it was taken away by Levi in the name of research. While New York was being rebuilt, Tony planned to take a vacation after arranging his work. As for where to go, Tony really didn't have any particular place he wanted to go. He was tired of seeing beach beauties, and young models and celebrities were too utilitarian. In the laboratory, Tony asked, "Is there anywhere you want to go?" Levi put down the experiment in his hands, thought for a while and said, "There really is a place." Tony said with some interest, "Tell me about it. Have you heard of Camartage?" Tony shook his head and asked J.A.R.V.I.S to search the place. The search result given by J.A.R.V.I.S is a small town in Nepal. Are you interested in a place like this? The alien's waste isn't enough for you. Is there a possibility that Nepal may not be too lazy, but the countries nearby that are too important? Well, it was a bachelor's party, and now it's going to be a bum party. So where are you going and what are you doing? Find a great magician. The big magician? The one who can create blizzards, summon watermen, and teleport. Levi thinks that the Ancient One should be able to convert dark energy into ice magic. I don't know if summoning water people will work, but if you can summon a younger brother to teleport, you can use the Ring of Disaster. It's really Antonidas 10. Li Wei replied, maybe this great magician knows a little more. Although I'm very interested, do you really want to go to Camartage? Tony looked at the broken place on the screen and couldn't help scratching his head. Hesitation said, how about we go to the Maldives or Sri Lanka first, and then go to Kamar after we have enough fun? Taj has a hard life. Maybe someone else has Wi-Fi. Tony said categorically, I guarantee with my future son's pie that there will be no Wi-Fi towels there. Chapter 65. Kamar Taj is actually just a small town under the Himalayas, not very famous. Tony and Levi drove for more than 10 hours to get here. The journey is difficult and the roads are not well maintained. The best thing is that you can park anywhere outside the town of Camartage. But when we arrived at Camartage, how to find the Ancient One became a problem again. There are a lot of people in the town, and they dress like they did in the last century. The skin color of the people here also tends to be bronze, and they look like they are working in the fields. And people also looked at Tony and Levi, whose clothes were more modern. The people of Camartage were not sure why these two people came to their small and remote place. Levi began to ask around about the deeds of the bald magician. Due to the language barrier, the two of them were in a difficult situation. The translator on their mobile phones was exhausted and they did not get any useful information. Bald magician, there is one in the tea house over there. 867. A certain simple citizen gave the key message. When Li Wei went to look for him, he found a 2-meter-tall man with a bald head and a scar on his face who was not easy to mess with at first sight. After the two sides looked at each other for a long time, the old man smiled at Levi and Tony with what he thought was a kind smile and said in English, Sorcerer Supreme invites you, come with me. But in the eyes of the two of them, this guy is more kind than Chitauri. It also looked ferocious. Levi was not afraid of the other party, you knew we were coming. The bald man replied, Sorcerer Supreme asked me to invite you too, but before that I need to find a friend to explain something to him. I didn't expect you to find him first. Well, if I had known, we should have found a cafe for a drink. This is not a place for coffee. The bald man took the two of them out of the tea house and headed to the secret realm. The nearby people suddenly realized that they were guests of Sorcerer Supreme, so that was fine. Usually when people ask if they know about Sorcerer Supreme, Ancient One and the like, they can pretend not to know, but now a magician comes to invite them, that is, they are guests. Almost all Kamartaj people have been beholden to the Sorcerer Supreme. The people of Kamartaj smiled as they watched Levi and Tony leave. After walking around with this bald man, we soon boarded a building, where a thin man with a bald head was sitting at a round table, holding a teacup and drinking tea. "Master, the guest has been brought," the bald man said respectfully to the bald magician. "I understand, you go ahead." The bald head nodded slightly. Levi knew the other person's identity from the Eye of Agamotto worn on the other person's chest and this iconic bald head. After the bald man left, Ancient One also stood up. Ancient One looked at Levi and Tony and said with a smile, "I just came back from New York, why don't you go to New York to find me? If I knew where the holy place was in New York, I wouldn't have to come all the way here." Levi smiled awkwardly. "When you use the power of Odin, the building with the clock tower next to you is New York's holy place." Levi froze, and it turned out that he was standing in front of someone else's house and had become naked. At this time Tony's eyes became strange. "So, instead of going to the place around you, you took me to the foot of the Himalayas." Levi explained, "If I knew where to find Sorcerer Supreme, why would I take you all the way to Nepal? So why did you come to me?" Ancient One was curious about the purpose of the two coming here. Tony looked at the buildings here. "We are in a large hall, surrounded by antiques and have some local style." Tony didn't know the other person's background at all. Judging from his appearance, he should be a senior monk from the temple. "Well, this elf, master, maybe we are here for a trip." The Ancient One glanced at Tony, wondering what he meant by calling him elf. "You may be traveling, but he should be looking for something specifically from me." After saying that, the Ancient One turned his eyes to Levi. Levi was a little embarrassed and said, "I just want to learn a spell." Tony was surprised, "You want to study abroad in Kamartaj? Can you do ice arrow and fireball biu biu?" Ancient One smiled and said nothing. "There may be a magic that can reach Manhattan from the Himalayas in an instant." Levi thought this would be much more useful. "You have some spell abilities, but spells are not suitable for you." Ancient One looked at Tony with admiration. Tony was a little confused by the Ancient One's eyes. He didn't like hairless people very much. But Toby wants to experience that kind of teleportation magic. Anyway, there's nothing else to do. I think that kind of flying magic suits me very well. Maybe I can use magic and technology to create greater inventions. The Ancient One did not refuse, "It's not impossible." Then he looked at Levi and continued, "You are very capable of magic. If you are willing to learn magic in Kamartaj, you can stay." Levi didn't expect Ancient One to agree so easily. "I always feel that it shouldn't be that simple." Ancient One walked into the hall, turned his back to the two people and said, "I can see the future. There will be a greater crisis in the future. The existence that has wiped out several universes will come to this planet. Only by working together can we survive the crisis." "What crisis is more serious than an alien invasion?" Tony frowned. The Ancient One picked up the teacup and replied, "This Chitauri invasion is just the beginning. Holy Place in New York has also sent many magicians to secretly protect people. Humanity can always get through it if we work together. Compared with this kind of appetizer, I am afraid that the future crisis will even the Earth will be destroyed, and only a few people can save this crisis." Tony wanted to know what kind of enemy could destroy the planet. "Moreover, how do you see the future? Will it be a parallel world? You must know that even nuclear bombs are just tickling the Earth. The future is still far away. You two are important roles in the future. Do you want to learn spells now?" Levi made a quick decision and wanted to stay. Tony said with some hesitation, "I'm afraid that Stark Industry won't be able to operate if I leave for too long. There are some things that I'm afraid it won't be convenient for Pepper to talk to the military or government. You can have remote meetings." Levi felt that this was not a big deal. "Is there internet here?" Ancient One pointed to a pillar in the temple, on which there was a piece of A4 paper with Wi-Fi password, on Shishojiao written in black and white. "Tony? Levi, you know, I prefer my daughter." Recalling what Tony once said, Levi was speechless. Levi nodded and said, "Yes, I believe you will have a lovely daughter in the future." This time it was Ancient One's turn to be confused. He wanted to use Eye of Agamotto to turn back time and see what Tony said at the end of the previous chapter. Levi and Tony decided to stay and try to learn spells. When he went to his residence to put his luggage, Levi asked quietly, "Tony, what kind of elf did you say the Ancient One magician was?" "Ghost horse elf, I remember. Wasn't it your favorite when you were a child?" Thinking of the connection between the two, bald head, big eyes, eye of Agamotto, and walking through walls, teleportation, there is nothing wrong with it. Chapter 66. Let's just say, I saw that bat monster rushing towards me, opening his big smelly mouth, and his sharp teeth were piercing my main artery. With this reaction, I punched the grandson on the chin and beat him on the wall. "Go!" Levi boasted to a group of teenagers in fluent Chinese. The young people listened with great interest and attentiveness, and Li Wei was extremely proud. This is what it should feel like to move from a large class to a small class. Oh, it's coming!" Levi stared and exclaimed. The teenagers became nervous and asked quickly, "What's coming?" Li Wei smiled evilly and said, "It feels like a fat tiger." "Teenagers, if you are the king of children, just say the king of children." A week has passed now. Since Levi has some basic skills in boxing and kicking, he does not need to take those physical fitness courses, so he studies with a group of trainee magicians. Said to be a group, it was actually only a dozen or so people. This group of teenagers come from all over the world, from all countries, and they all have one thing in common: they all have physical defects, missing arms and legs, and some even have leukemia and cancer. With their 26-year-old tenacious will, they have survived in Kamartaj survived. The power of magic makes them no longer afraid of pain. In the eyes of Kamartaj's mentor, only those who realize that life is hard will realize the meaning of protection. So this is why Tony only lasted 3 days of hard training before quitting. Even though there was Wi-Fi in his poor days, Tony still couldn't bear to get up at 6 in the morning to exercise and eat simple meals. Ancient One didn't say much. After all, there was no need for Tony to be the Sorcerer Supreme. Perhaps sticking to the path of technology would allow Tony to go further. The lunch break is over and the afternoon classes continue. It's still sling ring training and regular physical training, with Levi wearing the island ring and drawing circles. Everyone else could already see some arcs of light flashing through, like sparks, but Levi still didn't move at all. After all, the contact time is still short. According to Ancient One, Levi still lacks an opportunity, and this opportunity is not far away. Practice more now, and it will come naturally when the opportunity comes. Levi speculated that it might be related to the next change of night, and the countdown on the belt projection is about half a year away. During this period, in addition to practicing spells, Li Wei would also practice Kung Fu with him. In addition, going to the library to read those precious books was basically a required course every day. There are just a few books that Ancient One does not allow Levi to read. A month passed quietly like this. The impact of the Battle of New York is also slowly fading. Tony has also contacted Levi and recently developed a piece of equipment for him, which is completely based on the core of the Destroyer and can enhance the power of Delta or the Emperor of Heaven. Levi is looking forward to this. Kelver University is still under reconstruction, but will not reopen until next year. For this, Levi would also like to thank those Chitauri for actually destroying the school. Tony then talked about the current situation of other people. The Avengers were officially approved to be established. Captain America served as the captain of the Avengers, and Tony served as an advisor. His team members include Black Widow, Hawkeye, Phil Coulson, Winter Soldier, War Machine, Hulk, and already Thor left and Kamen Rider did not return. Among them, Phil Coulson also has his own code name, called Leo Knight. Tony has upgraded the Leo Cavalry belt, and now the second version has even surpassed Delta's regular performance, but there are fewer perfectly adapted equipment. In addition, Tony also gave the first version of the Leo Cavalry belt to Black Widow and Hawkeye, and optimized it for their characteristics. Judging from the pictures sent by Tony, Black Widow's Leo Cavalry has a slimmer shape, seems to have undergone a lightweight transformation, and also highlights the female characteristics. Hawkeye's Leo Cavalry form only has optimized eyes and is equipped with a stronger compound bow. As an archer, his armor is thicker and completely turret style. The second generation of Phil Coulson's Leo Cavalry looks more ferocious, with a very domineering feeling all over his body, which is completely inconsistent with Phil Coulson's gentle temperament. Although the speed of the second generation Leo Cavalry has been reduced, its punching and kicking power have tripled compared to the first generation. The armor on its body is covered with a large amount of Apollo metal and a small amount of Luna metal. Apollo metal is a stronger metal than Luna metal, with a hardness exceeding diamond. Based on Thor's technology, Tony mixed a small amount of Luna metal, a trace amount of vibranium, and a large amount of Asgardian alloy to make it. The only disadvantage of the second generation Leo cavalry is that it is slow to dress. The first generation only takes a few seconds to dress, while the second generation takes 20 seconds to dress. There are still many areas that need to be optimized, but it is enough for now. Captain America's uniform has also been specially optimized by Tony, using some Luna metal. Winter Soldier does not need a uniform, just a mask is enough. The upper body directly wears a bulletproof vest made of Luna metal, and the lower body is a combat uniform-style bulletproof pants. Hearing that all the Avengers had strengthened, Levi couldn't help but sigh that the world had really changed. There are bigger changes in this world. Recently, special events often occur in New York that require the dispatch of Avengers. For example, Enoch of Enoch attacks humans. From time to time, he attacks pharmaceutical companies and other places. Some people use alien weapons to create chaos, causing the crime rate in New York to skyrocket. Tony also mentioned a strange point. There seemed to be differences between AF and Enoch. They were killing each other. The specific reasons still need to be investigated. The military also arrested Afei Enoch, but not long ago the military laboratory was attacked, and the experimental subject Afei Enoch was rescued. Tony has also recently reproduced the strong acid of Frog Ophino 313, but it is really hard to find a container that can hold this strong acid. It needs a special glass container to load it. Currently, Tony is making it into a strong acid missile, specifically used to deal with enemies using metal weapons. By the way, Levi, do you want to hear the latest news about someone else? Tony said mysteriously. Levi was a little curious. Tell me about it. Fiu has also been helping out in Avengers recently, and he has also recruited an Orpheus, who is, well, a chicken-faced Orpheus. Levi? With such strange descriptions, you are not afraid of teaching children bad things. The two chatted for a while, and after Tony hung up the phone, Levi went to the library with nothing to do. In the library, the librarian, Wang, was looking down at the book. Li Wei tiptoed in. Old Wang, what are you doing? Li Wei suddenly said. Lao Wang was startled, then looked at Levi helplessly and said, if Sorcerer Supreme hadn't told you, I would have kicked you out. Don't be so heartless. Lao Wang didn't care about that. He stood up and pushed Levi out of the library. While pushing him, he said, Sorcerer Supreme specifically told me today to ask you to come to the library again tonight. You'll know then. Levi was a little confused. Chapter 67. Levi entered the library and saw the Ancient One already waiting for him here. Li Wei said very respectfully, Master. Ancient One nodded and motioned for Levi to come over. Li Wei walked up to Ancient One and saw Ancient One taking out an ancient book from his sleeve and placing it on the table. What is this? Levi remembered that this was the one he was not allowed to read. Ancient One replied, the Book of Emperor Weishan, you should be able to learn it now. Is this the Book of Emperor Weishan? Li Wei couldn't wait to turn over a page, and the originally blank book suddenly displayed text, even in Chinese. The Book of Weishan Emperor will show the mother tongue to approved readers, but why are you, an American, whose mother tongue is Chinese? Ancient One said it was strange. Is there anything wrong with my mother being an overseas Chinese? Then, forget it. The Ancient One said no more and began to cast a spell. The eye of Agamotto on his chest slowly opened, revealing the emerald green time gem. Concentrate, ignore what happens next, and concentrate on reading the Book of Emperor Weishan. After the Ancient One finished speaking, he stretched out a finger, a light emitted from the fingertip, and when he bent his finger, a belt appeared behind Li Wei's back. Projection. There are still more than 140 days left in the first half of the countdown. Immediately afterwards, Ancient One tapped the Book of Emperor Weishan with his finger, and suddenly a ray of light shot out from the book and rushed towards Li Wei's eyebrows. Levi closed his eyes subconsciously, and the light blended into the center of his eyebrows. As the white light blended in, the belt turned into a liquid, exuding milky white fluorescence. The Ancient One controlled the time gem and began to exert force, and the countdown behind Levi passed quickly like quicksand. Li Wei's eyes were fixed on the Book of Emperor Weishan, and the movements of his hands became faster and faster as time passed. The spells recorded in Weishan Emperor's book seemed to be unable to hold him back. As time returned to zero, Li Wei also turned to the last page of Wei Shan Emperor's art. When the countdown ended, the light surrounding the belt disappeared, and the belt turned into a palm-shaped belt that was black overall with a red line in the center. New belt! Levi said in shock. Suddenly something hit his head and landed on the book of Emperor Wei Shan. Levi picked it up and put it in the palm of his hand. It was a gold and black ring. The outline of the gold lines looked like the head of a Kamen Rider. I can perceive the magic contained in this ring. The Ancient One was also looking at the ring. Levi scratched his head. I remember this. Li Wei frowned as he recalled, and the image of being pregnant appeared in his mind. Still from the first perspective, there is a black and gold Kamen Rider standing on the other side, who seems to be wearing an old necromancer's magic hat on his head. And this belt, a wrap belt. Try it. Ancient One motioned to Levi to show this power. Levi put on the ring, and then pressed the button on the belt. The belt released a faint colorful light, and placed the hand with the ring on the palm of the belt. Soon there was an inexplicable sound effect. You are so stupid but he is so good. *N, change. Now. A circular magic circle appears above the head out of thin air, moves downward quickly, and completes its transformation as the body penetrates the magic circle. He wears a necromancer hat on his head with a devil's face painted on it, a suit of armor that looks like a leather jacket, and a short gold-trimmed cloak on the back. Ancient One nodded with a smile. Very good, now try to open the space door, just as the instructor taught. Levi raised one hand, with his index and middle fingers facing forward, and drew circles with the other hand, and soon a space door to the Stark building opened. Hey! On the other side of the space door, Tony had his back to the space door in the laboratory, and felt someone looking at him from behind. When he turned around, he saw an exaggerated-looking guy looking at him. Levi! Tony tried calling. Levi nodded, and Tony was overjoyed. Although he had never seen Levi dressed like this before, the familiar feeling was unmistakable. He was about to step forward, but the space door slowly closed. Is this guy going to experiment on me? Tony felt like a cat scratching his head, wanting to study the kind of energy that could open a space door. You opened the space gate from Kamartaj to New York for the first time. Your form seems to be able to enhance spells. Well, your ability is good. Ancient One praised Levi without hesitation. In fact, not only is his ability good, Levi can open the space door without even using the sling ring. I will give you 3 days to study and consolidate the Book of Emperor Wei Shan. After 3 days, I will come to check and accept it. The Ancient One left without looking back, carrying his hands on his back. Time is so tight. Li Wei was the only one left in the library. He lowered his head and looked at the Book of Emperor Wei Shan. Li Wei simply sat down, picked up the book and read it seriously. The Book of Emperor Wei Shan records many magics, almost all of which are used for defense. Only at the back are there scattered attack magics. The handwriting in the first half is also different from the back. It can almost be seen that it belongs to 3 or 4 people. Notes. Levi, who transformed into a golden magician, has also greatly improved his spirit. Not only does he not feel sleepy at all, he is even extremely energetic. Li Wei felt that he had already memorized the Book of Emperor Wei Shan in his mind, and there was no need to consolidate it. Li Wei tried to use the spells in the Book of Emperor Wei Shan, chanting incantations intermittently, and soon a burst of magic energy emerged, and golden protective gear appeared all over his body. Protection, retrieval from the air, perception. Li Wei put down the Book of Emperor Wei Shan and looked at the other books on the shelf. After staying up all night reading, Levi has mastered a large number of spells, including energy projection, energy conversion, illusion, duplication, psychokinesis, flight. Especially for energy conversion, it is smoothest when converting magic power into thunder and lightning. Perhaps this is also the benefit of using the Delta Belt for a long time. The Delta Belt gives the user the ability to release red electric shocks in the original novel. Although these spells are still a bit unskilled, I believe you will be able to master them soon with more practice. In this way, Levi practiced while absorbing the inheritance of Kamartaj, and 3 days passed quickly. The door of the library was opened by Lao Wang, and King Tu was stunned when he saw what was happening in the library. I saw a man dressed in black and gold, floating in the air with his legs crossed at the moment, with stars floating around him, and his whole figure seemed a little empty. Communication among the stars. As if sensing that time had come, Levi's body gradually solidified and slowly landed on the ground. Seeing Levi land, Lao Wang said, Li Wei, Sorcerer Supreme is looking for you. Levi turned around, flicked his black robe, walked toward the door, and said, I'll go there right away. Arriving outside Ancient One's main hall, at the moment the other party was already waiting for him in the open space outside the door. Ancient One praised, in just 3 days, you have mastered the Book of Wetian Emperor in a large number of spells. This form seems to be born for magic. When facing the Ancient One, Li Wei felt like she was being seen through by the other person all the time. This feeling was really uncomfortable, but the other person's fairy-like demeanor made people inexplicably feel at ease with her. Let me see your results. The moment Ancient One stretched out his hand, a fan made of magic appeared in his hand. Levi asked doubtfully, melee combat. You can use it anyway. That's what you said. Chapter 68. The space door opened, and Levi followed the Ancient One to a secluded valley. The surrounding area was bare with no vegetation at all. In the distance, there are steps leading here. This is a place where magicians specialize in experimenting with magic. Ancient One then waved his hand, and a fan made of magic energy appeared in his hand, and said gently, let's get started. Levi didn't hold back when he saw this, summoning the magic circle to stand upright, releasing powerful flames, spinning towards the Ancient One and wrapping it up. Ancient One turned his wrist, and his fan instantly expanded and gently blocked the flames. In addition to a special ring for night kicks, Levi also has a universal magic ring. There is an obsidian in the center of the ring, and the obsidian is firmly imprisoned by a gold rim. With the universal magic ring, you can convert energy at will. The flames broke, and 2 beasts rushed out of the flames, attacking Ancient One from both sides. One of these 2 tigers is composed of thunder and lightning elements, and the other is composed of fire elements. The fan in Ancient One's hand has shrunk. The Ancient One, who originally waved it gracefully with one hand, now also uses the other ear. Suddenly he shook his hand, and the golden magic whip was swung out by the Ancient One and wrapped around the Thunder Tiger. The Ancient One threw it back with all his strength. The Flame Tiger had already rushed in front of him, and the Ancient One leaned over and slid down. Use the fan to hit the side of the Flame Tiger 480 hard. The Flame Tiger could not withstand the power of the Ancient One. It was hit and flew out, turning into sporadic flames in the air and dissipating. However, at the moment, a blue magic circle appeared in the air, and a bitter blizzard fell. Good use of energy conversion. The conversion speed is very fast. Ancient One praised, and then the fan surface in his hand suddenly expanded. He held the fan with both hands and fanned it hard, which caused the wind and snow fan to deflect. Levi kept moving his hands, and a light containing the power of thunder in his palms was thrown towards the Ancient One. Thunder resounded through the sky, and the thunder instantly hit Gu-san, who had no time to defend himself. Bah! Ancient One's body was emitting electric flowers, but this blow did not have any impact on Ancient One. Instead, Ancient One shook his body and scattered all the electric flowers on his body. I saw the offensive ability. Now let's see how well you learn the Book of Wetian Emperor. 27 Ancient One was extremely fast, rushing towards Levi as if his body was accelerated by nitrogen. Levi came back to his senses, raised his hands, and a golden wall of light instantly stood in front of him. Bang! Ancient One waved his fan against the wall of light. The wall of light slowly cracked at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally turned into light particles and dissipated into the air. Not bad. Ancient One nodded with satisfaction, then raised his head and looked at the golden magic circle descending above his head. The magic circle touched Ancient One, and strong gravity pressed down, but Ancient One's legs still stood straight and did not bend at all. Boom! The ground beneath Ancient One's feet cracked, and her body slowly descended. It wasn't that Ancient One was crushed to the ground, but that her legs were already embedded in the soil. The magic circle was shattered and the gravity magic disappeared. Ancient One pulled out his leg and stood in the open space aside and said, "That's enough, I will be coaching you to improve the quality of your spells recently." "Thank you, Master." At the moment, there were quite a few people standing below the steps, all of whom were magicians from Kamartaj. The faces of a group of magicians were in disbelief. Why does this guy learn differently from us? Isn't it possible to just fight in close combat, open the door, crack the whip, fight in close combat, and open the door? This is magician. Set fire and discharge electricity. The Ancient One's test is over, and Levi's transformation is released. As soon as the transformation was lifted, the feeling of exhaustion kept coming up as if there was no restraint. Ignoring the looks of the apprentices, he returned to the room and fell asleep. This sleep lasted a whole day and night. Levi, who was full of energy, patted his stomach. Strangely, he was not hungry at all. The energy generated by communicating with the stars will strengthen your body and also give you a feeling of fullness. Ancient One sat at the desk in the room. This sound frightened Levi, and he didn't even notice that there was another person in the room. Grandmaster. Ancient One explained, you rested for a day and a night, and the king thought something happened to you. Li Wei smiled and said, Lao Wang still cares about me very much. Because you are the only one who would be interested in his story about the history of the universe and the infinite gems. After Levi rested, Ancient One asked him to try to communicate with the stars. After Levi's transformation was completed, the communication star quickly entered the state, and the Ancient One slowly guided him in the soul posture. With the guidance efficiency of the Ancient One improved, star-like energy irrigated Levi's body. After you gradually become familiar with this feeling, you can communicate with the astral body instead of sleeping and eating. With the guidance of Ancient One, Levi's proficiency in spells improved rapidly in the next few days. The impact of the Battle of New York gradually decreased, and the reconstruction work was completed within half a year by engineering teams supported by various countries. Among them, the Chinese engineering team leads other countries in terms of quality and speed, and has received many large orders as a result. Let this group of foreigners experience the speed of China. The Osborne building was destroyed during the war and has recently been given a new lease of life. But Osborne, who was reborn, had a very difficult time during this period. The alien invasion could provide insurance compensation, and he did not gain any benefits from the war. Although he obtained some alien corpses and weapons, research and development took time. What Norman Osborn lacks most now is time, especially after losing Kurt Connors. The research on their family's genetic disease is progressing much slower. For this reason, Norman Osborn had to work harder. Speaking of Kurt Connors, there was no danger after being abducted by Orphanok. On the contrary, he was treated better than Osborn. He was even allowed to do whatever he wanted and researched his subjects. The only thing was to find a way to extend the life of Orphanok. Method. At the moment, this disabled doctor has successfully restored the defective's right arm with the help of the amputated limb regeneration drug he developed. This amputated limb regeneration potion is still somewhat related to the lizard, but it is the lizard Orpheus Enoch, not an ordinary lizard. The lizard Orpheus also has the ability to regenerate severed limbs. Dr. Connors incorporated the serum of the lizard Orpheus into his research results, which not only restored the severed limbs, but also improved his physical condition. This medicine definitely has side effects. For example, Connor's skin is grayish-green, which looks very different, and is accompanied by strange patterns that look like full-body tattoos. Now the Orpheus organization has eliminated more than a dozen Orpheus, as well as vampire weirdos. Downline gangs have even developed, and their power in New York even threatened the former underground Emperor Kingpin. But Orpheus Enoch is not prosperous and peaceful. Now it can be said that it is suffering from internal and external troubles. Not only were S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers hostile to them, there was also a split among the Orpheus Enochs. Mafiai, who had just joined not long ago, led the other 7 or 8 Orpheus to leave the organization and form another faction by virtue of his leadership skills. The conventional weapons of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Avengers can already suppress Orpheus Enoch, thanks to the invention of Tony Stark. Enoch the Octopus, the godfather of the organization, has never thought about leading people to defeat Tony Stark, but this has to take into account the Kamen Rider who has not appeared for a long time. There is no sign of Kamen Rider among the recently active Avengers. It seems that he disappeared after the Battle of New York, but he still has a place in the list announced by the Avengers. Chapter 69. Considering the power of the Kamen Rider, the Godfather could only say don't dare to mess with him. S.H.I.E.L.D. is now very peaceful. Another wave of students graduated from S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy this year, filling many positions and easing the busy atmosphere of SHIELD. If you want to clean up HYDRA after the Battle of New York, you will really have a big problem. Nick Fury feels this way. Fortunately, his capable subordinates reaped a lot of benefits in this battle in New York. Nick Fury also tried to analyze the Leo Cavalry belt, planning to give each of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s elite agents one, but he underestimated Tony's invention. He couldn't copy the core of Leo Cavalry alone, so he could only beg Tony to buy 1 or 2 pieces. Tony was not short of money, and he was annoyed by the black braised eggs disturbing him, so he simply pointed the finger at Levi, the founder of the Leo Cavalry. Nick Fury tried to contact Levi but was completely unable to contact him because Levi hacked him. Therefore, Nick Fury can only look at the Leo Cavalry belt with envy. Without the help of Tony's biochip, others would not be able to use the Leo Cavalry belt, which is equivalent to being locked in technology. Tony has not been idle during this time, and has been making new armors to facilitate combat in various situations. The latest set of Mark 43 has already used semi-nanotechnology. The so-called semi-nanotechnology is because some battlesuits are equipped with nano coverings, and some still require mechanical assistance. Tony, who had never experienced transporting nuclear bombs, did not suffer from a serious anxiety disorder. He was just worried about the possibility of alien invasion in the future, so he wanted to enhance his experience with everyone in the Avengers Alliance. He even prepared Leeway's enhanced equipment, waiting for Leeway to come back to test it. Levi at the moment. After nearly a year of training, Leeway became more and more powerful, not only in his spells but also in his skills. The Ancient One who has lived for such a long time is not just a magician, he is also extremely powerful in martial arts. Kamartaj's magicians have to exercise and practice martial arts every day. Each one of them is a melee magician, and standing up to the Winter Soldier is no problem. By communicating with the energy fed back by the stars, Levi's physical fitness has surpassed that of ordinary humans several times, and he can punch 700 to 800 kilograms without transforming. This situation also feeds back into the transformation, just like Delta's performance has also been improved. It's not like Leeway never asked Ancient One when he would be able to leave the army, Ancient One just replied after 1 year. During his training, Levi also followed the magicians to solve some invasion incidents from the Dark Dimension, and he had a general understanding of this group. Holy places at 3 locations on the Earth conduct global monitoring to prevent invasion from other dimensions. Once creatures from other latitudes appear, they will issue an alert to Kamartaj. The magician who receives the alarm first reports it to Ancient One and then arranges for people to eliminate those creatures from other latitudes. Of invasion. The work is not hard, but it is life-consuming. Magicians also work hard and never complain about the dangers of this job. All the creatures from these latitudes are of the abstract style. Regardless of whether they look like melons or jujubes, their abilities are also stranger than the last. Leeway even wondered if some abstract master had gone to other latitudes to create the images. Time passes slowly. While Levi was still studying and practicing hard, an uninvited guest came to Stark Building, and he talked about business with him. Pepper is responsible for this business partnership. Through the other party's explanation, Pepper's frown deepened. After the other party finished introducing the product, Pepper said, "Mr. Killian, I cannot agree to this cooperation. Your product has weapons tendencies, which is not allowed by the chairman of our company. Stark will no longer engage in the manufacturing of weapons-related products. I think you should have a good talk with Mr. Stark. This is not a weapon, but a product that benefits the public and can even make disabled people return to normal. I will, Mr. Killian, I'm afraid you have to wait for a while. I think Osborne Company should be more suitable for your technology. I believe the beautiful Miss Pepper will not keep me waiting too long." Killian had something in mind and smiled at Pepper. Pepper looked at the other party with some disgust and ordered him to be kicked out. Happy sent Killian out. He had some impression of this person, but he really couldn't remember where he had seen him. So Happy began to investigate, taking photos of the other party and writing down the license plate. After 2 days of investigation, Happy finally remembered the identity of the other party. "Please give me flowers." It turned out to be the scientific researcher who was let go by Tony before. When the other party appeared here this time, Happy always felt that the other party had some evil intentions and might want to do something. Happy began to investigate further, and it didn't matter. He happened to capture information about Killian's men's transactions with an organization, which Happy had also heard about from Tony. A.F. Enoch. This is a mixed bag of shopping malls. The other party's transactions obviously have their own concerns. Happy realized something was wrong and was about to leave, but he was blocked by someone. The other person was tall and stared at him fiercely. Happy was not a good person either, so he punched the opponent in the face with all his strength. The other party did not shy away from receiving a punch, but this punch only made him tilt his head slightly. Happy didn't expect that such a heavy punch from him would only have this effect. The opponent also moved at this time, pushing Happy's chest with his palm and pushing him away. Happy's already heavy weight hit a stall, crushing the stall table. He immediately lost his ability to move and spit out blood from his mouth. When the people around him saw this, they immediately panicked and ran away in a hurry. The people of New York are already familiar with this. They have never seen any battles before. You would be a fool to stay and watch the fun. Those who don't run will die. The crowd ran away with a roar, and the two traitors also gathered around. One of them recognized Happy and said, "I recognize him. He is Tony Stark's bodyguard and driver." Tony Stark noticed us. The man in the black hat frowned. No one dared to answer this sentence, but the man who seriously injured Happy said, "Whatever. Teach that playboy a lesson." After that, he was about to kill him. Happy. Wait a minute. The man in the black hat stopped the strong man, and then said to the traitor, "Didn't you say that your extremis can extend the life of Enoch? Black hat pointed at Happy and said, "Transform him. If it succeeds, let him try extremis. If it fails, his life will be bad, and Tony Stark will be taught a lesson." The tall man sneered, extended his fingers and penetrated Happy's mouth. Happy's eyes bulged and his body shook violently. Chapter 70. Killian's men felt a chill. He knew that the other party was a monster-like human being, but in such close contact and seeing that the other party could easily kill a human being, he felt quite uncomfortable. In his opinion, this kind of monster is no longer worthy of being called a human being. The tall man retracted his finger, and the three of them just quietly observed the movements of Happy. Soon, special lines appeared on Happy's face. "Success, this fat man is lucky. Go and feed extremis to him." The man in the black hat behind the tall man looked at Killian's men. Killian's men took out a tube of unknown liquid from the suitcase, opened Happy's mouth and fed him in. An orange light appeared on Happy's neck and penetrated the skin. Then the clothes on his chest were burned, and a large area of orange light was revealed through the skin, as if there was a small sun on his chest. Happy pinched his neck 977, feeling extremely painful, his body also arched up, and his whole body was exerting force. Soon, Happy's body suddenly changed and turned into AF Enoch with the characteristics of a rhinoceros. Originally, his whole body was dark grey, but a red sun-like sign appeared on his chest. Happy stood up, a razor appeared in his hand, and slashed at the nearest three people. Phew! The AF Enoch duo dodged very quickly, but Killian's subordinate was slashed in the chest with a razor. The man's chest was like Happy's before, as if it was ignited from within. The wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and he had a ferocious expression on his face as he wanted to escape. But Happy didn't stop. His thick arm muscles bulged, and he swung the sharp razor, slashing the opponent's neck, and his head took off in an instant. However, the opponent's body seemed to be erupting from a volcano, lava-like blood flowed out from the incision in his neck, and his body exploded. Boom! The flames instantly covered the surroundings, but a vortex slowly appeared in the center of the flames, and the vortex gradually expanded and swallowed the flames. The flames that were originally spreading around seemed to be gradually shrinking under the control of an inexplicable force. Happy's figure was revealed, and the red sun pattern on his chest looked like a huge mouth absorbing the flames. This energy-absorbing property is so wonderful. The man in the black hat flashed his eyes, and then said with a sinister smile, "When I first transformed into Enoch, I couldn't suppress the idea of destroying everything. In this case, let Tony Stark have a headache, not knowing what choice he will make when facing his friends." After receiving the instructions, the tall man's body suddenly changed, and he turned out to be the crocodile AF Enoch. The crocodile AF Enoch has 3 lives, and his strength will increase every time he dies. After he was killed by Levi last time, his ashes were placed in the S.H.I.E.L.D warehouse. After his resurrection, he quietly got up and ran away. The crocodile versus the rhinoceros, both sides are different from ordinary AF Enoch. It's just that the rhinoceros is still unable to control its own consciousness, and the crocodile is good at guiding it to the outside streets. The one-horned fairy wreaks havoc on the streets, and can even release a flame slash that can cut off a small building in an instant. The crocodile and the man in the black hat planned a successful and decisive retreat. AF Enoch wreaked havoc on the streets. This kind of incident was naturally beyond the control of ordinary police. The supernatural power was immediately taken over by SHIELD. Phil Coulson and Hawkeye attacked together to attack the one-horned fairy AF Enoch. The one-horned fairy AF Enoch is different from the previous ones. Both offensive and defensive abilities are very strong. Boy, why can't you subdue the little animals in the zoo? A light voice came from the sky. The two of them looked up and saw that Tony was coming to support them, and then they gradually regained their advantage. The location is in New York, and Tony arrived very quickly. Just when Tony was about to use his killer move to kill this unusual Orpheus Enoch, a message suddenly came from Jarvis. Sir, there is a video uploaded to the Stark Building server, about this Orpheus Enoch and Mr. Happy. Happy. Tony was stunned for a moment, then stopped attacking and said, "Play it for me." Tony suddenly stood still, making Phil Coulson and Hawkeye passive for a while, allowing the one-horned fairy Orpheus to fight. When Tony finished watching the video, the two of them heard a cry of anger. "I will definitely make you pay the price, Tony Stark." "What's wrong, Tony?" Phil Coulson asked in confusion as he pulled away. Tony opened his mask, and Phil Coulson could see the gloom on his face, and his eyes were splitting as he said, "That Orpheus is happy. That driver of yours." Phil Coulson also realized that something was wrong, and for a moment he thought that someone was trying to mess with Tony. "Give it to me." Tony asked Phil Coulson and Hawkeye to wait. In order to bring Happy back to his senses, Tony simply didn't close his mask, and sprinted towards Happy with full thrust. He punched the horned fairy in the face with his fists, and the real man's hand-to-hand fight began. Tony yelled Happy's name every time he punched him. To outsiders, this scene looks like Tony shouting Happy while beating the little monster. 2. Tony. Happy was punched in the face continuously and gradually regained his senses. Tony stopped moving, but still pressed Happy's shoulders with his hands, wondering, recovered? Happy stood still, and Enoch's features slowly shrunk, finally returning to his human appearance. The clothes on his body were in pieces, but he still looked clean and tidy like before. This street was also badly damaged by Happy. Looking around, Happy knew that he was in trouble this time and might have to pay legal responsibility for it. Seeing that Happy was fine, Tony suppressed the anger in his heart and comforted him, "Happy, Stark Zoo now has flying fish, octopuses, and a unicorn. Believe me, those people will definitely pay the price." Happy nodded, but his energy was haggard. After taking a few steps, he fainted and fell to the ground. "Tony, what do you want to do?" Phil Coulson is also more concerned about Happy's situation. "Based on the relationship between the other party and Happy, I'm afraid he will do something very dangerous." Tony didn't answer the question but said, "Help me get Happy back to the Stark Building. He needs a full body check." Phil Coulson and Hawkeye are naturally willing to help. With them in S.H.I.E.L.D, they will not interfere, but Tony has to give an explanation to the municipal government for the destroyed streets. In Tony's opinion, problems that can be solved with money are not problems. However, what Tony didn't expect was that the incident would quickly escalate. The shopping mall's surveillance video completely recorded Happy transforming into Enoch. After careful editing, Happy turned into a monster. Tony Stark's bodyguard Happy Hogan is a grey monster with strong lethality. Shocked. Tony Stark has been protected by monsters. Iron Man shelters the unknown grey monster. Shocked. This rich man actually chose to do this for his friends. Chapter 71. The competing reports from various media also made Stark Industries anxious for a while. Fortunately, Stark Industries invested in a lot of media, and in just 3 days, the public opinion was reversed. Stark Industries, a behemoth company, had its media outlets publish reports one after another, and public opinion was flying all over the place. The military, which came to join in the excitement, even asked Tony to hand over Happy Hogan. In the end, Captain America helped and took the initiative to hold a press conference, announcing that the attack was regarded as a supernatural crime and a declaration of war against the Avengers. The Avengers will urgently recall various members to prepare for crimes committed by supernatural beings. Tony even took the initiative to report his address at the press conference, asking the other party to come and find him. He was not afraid, except for the fear that a bunch of losers would not dare to come. The press conference ended, and many reporters were welcomed outside the beach house. A discussion meeting on countermeasures against the new human organization was also held inside the Avengers base. The members who participated in the meeting unanimously believed that the Orpheus Enoch 26 organization cannot be delayed and must be dealt with severely and beaten to death with a stick. After attending the meeting, Tony returned to his residence. Now Pepper has moved over to Havilla and lives with Tony. Isn't Levi back yet? It's been almost a year. Pepper thought of Levi. If Levi was here, Tony wouldn't have to be so anxious. Tony shook his head, I haven't been able to contact Levi recently. If he knew about Happy, he would be as anxious as me. Pepper sat next to Tony, held his hand and said, after all, Happy has watched him grow up, and Happy is always with him when you are not around. Don't be too anxious, Happy is not okay. Something went too wrong. If I had known, I should have given Happy a Leo cavalry belt. Tony attended the meeting with an anxious look on his face. Until now, Happy has been waking up and falling asleep intermittently. Pepper interrupted Tony and comforted him, no need to say any more Tony, it's not your fault. Happy went to investigate that Killian just to help you. There must be something wrong with that person. The substance that Happy injected is very unstable. I need some time to improve and perfect the substance. During this time, I will ask Rod to help protect you. Tony smacked Pepper's hand and continued, I'm afraid they will too. I will treat you like a slave. Pepper was also very cooperative and said, recently, I try to be at the company and go out less, so I don't have to worry. You are so considerate of me, my dear. I just don't want you to be too tired. Soon the atmosphere between the two of them changed from anxious and worried to full of love. What the two of them didn't know was that someone was already targeting them and taking action. In the night sky, 2 armed helicopters flew in, hanging far away 3 kilometers away from HYDRA. Missiles ready, call out 2 missiles rushed towards HYDRA with tail flames, and Tony in the villa also received an alert from JARVIS. If he has the courage to reveal his home address, he has the confidence to block the opponent. Tony directly inputs the command to J.A.R.V.I.S to turn on the automatic defense system, and then J.A.R.V.I.S activates steel battle suits number 30 to 42 for defense. The garage roof of HYDRA opened, and steel battle suits flew out one after another and were arranged neatly in the air. 2 of them stretched out their hands towards the flying missiles, and the light cannons were fired instantly. Boom! Boom! 2 fireworks exploded on the sea. Pepper watched helplessly as Tony put on the steel battlesuit and prepared to leave. She didn't want Tony to take risks. Tony, can't you leave it to J.A.R.V.I.S? Pepper, if I can't solve this matter personally and avenge Happy, I will feel guilty for the rest of my life. Tony put on Mark 43 and flew towards 2 military helicopters 3 kilometers away. 12 steel battlesuits are reserved for defensive purposes to protect Pepper. Seeing 2 armed helicopters, Tony stretched out his arm, and the laser beam on his arm instantly cut open the propeller of an armed helicopter. The missile compartment on the back was opened, all the micromissiles were launched, and another armed helicopter also fell in the explosion. After easily dealing with the invading enemies, Tony was about to continue scanning to see if there were other enemies nearby. A figure emerged from the sea, jumped up, and bumped into Tony. Tony rolled in the air, and finally stabilized himself to continue flying, but only the sound of falling water was heard. What? Tony looked down at the ocean. On the sea, a black shadow slowly rose behind Tony. Tony didn't expect that the other party really thought he was blind. He increased the power and suddenly raised his hand and aimed the light cannon at his head. The figure suffered a heavy blow and fell straight down. This process allowed Tony to see what the other person looked like. The stickleback type AF Enoch was recorded in S.H.I.E.L.D.504221 file. Physically attacks at a speed of 180 km per hour. J.A.R.V.I.S broadcasts the opponent's information like a Pokédex. He doesn't have a brain like Hulk. Tony said disdainfully. As soon as Tony finished speaking, the stickleback AF Enoch rushed out of the water and rushed over holding a trident. A shot to the reactor in Tony's chest. The blow was so fast that Tony had no time to react. Bah! The reactor was damaged. Tony grabbed the stickleback Orpheus Enoch, put his palm against the opponent's face, and fired the high-power palm cannon. Boom! The stickleback's head was instantly blasted into powder. Tony let go of his hand, and Fieno's body turned into ashes and dissipated as he fell. J.A.R.V.I.S reminded at this time, Sir, the energy is still 10% exhausted. Let the prodigal come and pick me up. 573 Sir, other steel battlesuits are resisting the invasion. Tony suddenly felt that the energy output was not stable, and J.A.R.V.I.S voice even made intermittent electric current sounds. Looking at it again, the energy was passing rapidly. There was only 10% just now, but now there was only 5% left. Tony had no choice but to rush back, otherwise he would have to swim back dragging his steel battlesuit. Steve, arrest Killian immediately. Tony sent the last words to Captain America after the steel battlesuit lost its energy. Regardless of whether there is evidence or not, Killian is one of the initiators of this matter. Dragging the steel battlesuit back to HYDRA, Tony only saw the remains of the steel battlesuit on the ground. Many of the steel battlesuits had been destroyed and broken down into parts. Pepper! Tony shouted heartbreakingly as he looked at the collapsed HYDRA. With red eyes, Tony found a still usable arc reactor from the wreckage and installed it on the 13th Mark 43 restarted, J.A.R.V.I.S was connected, and the first thing was to send Captain America's reply. S.H.I.E.L.D has been dispatched, led by Phil Coulson to arrest Killian. Tony rushed to Avengers Tower with full of anger. Captain America and Winter Soldier at the moment were also preparing to attack a club of Orpheus Enoch organization. It was said that Orpheus Enoch had appeared there. Chapter 72. When Tony arrived at the Avengers base, he met Captain America and Winter Soldier who were out. Tony told the two of them the news that Pepper had been captured. The originally decided action could only be put on hold temporarily. It was more important to deal with Tony's problem. Anyway, the club was still keeping its tail between its legs at this stage. After a night of investigation, Tony finally found evidence of Killian's crime. This guy actually used disabled soldiers for human experiments. Captain America hated this kind of thing. Extremis is very unstable, and some people will experience rejection after using it, leading to self-destruction. Some people can perfectly integrate Extremis. Once the integration is successful, the broken limb will be reborn, but successful people do not mean that they can perfectly control Extremis. If it is attacked beyond a certain threshold, it will explode due to unstable heat. I'll ask Phil Coulson. Winter Soldier went to contact Phil Coulson. Tony was still anxiously searching for any traces of Pepper. Through S.H.I.E.L.D.'s system taking over cameras across the United States, Tony finally discovered the cobweb horse traces. At the same time, Black Widow also received an insider and rushed to the base. The insider asked to see Tony by name. By the way, he also talked about his one-night stand experience with Tony. Tony dragged his exhausted body to meet this woman, who called herself Maya. Looking at the other person's appearance, Tony remembered what happened in the past, when he helped the other person improve an algorithm. In this case, Tony froze in place at the thought. Just listen to Maya Hansen say, "You are the real creator of Extremis." Then she corrected, "To be precise, you improved Extremis." "Okay, no matter what, I need to know everything you know." Tony just wants to get Peppa Pig back. Maya Hansen actually betrayed her because she couldn't stand the increasingly crazier Killian. In fact, it's unreasonable to say betrayal. She and Killian just had a cooperative relationship. As an insider, she knew that Killian had been using human experiments to perfect Extremis. Because of Extremis's powerful ability, his ambitions also increased, and he wanted to use it to control the United States. There are a group of US military bosses behind him. Without their guidance, he would not have had so many resources to perfect Extremis. Killian is a smart man, but he doesn't know that he is just a gun to help the military bosses seize more things. Once Killian is completely useless, he will probably take the blame just to get more benefits for the military. Captain America knows best what the US military can do, but those people cannot be dealt with now, so Killian still needs to be dealt with first. I know Killian's research base. Maya Hansen said the location without hesitation. Tony's face wasn't wrinkled and his eyes were bloodshot. If it was a human experiment, Tony had already thought about what would happen to Pepper. After a night's rest, having experienced the battle, and thinking about what happened to Pepper, Tony was so angry that his eyes turned black and he directly measured it. This frightened Captain America and he quickly called the doctor. Phil Coulson, who wanted to arrest Killian, met with great resistance. Killian is protected by military personnel, and it would be difficult to take him away without evidence. Fortunately, after a night of hard work, Tony found the criminal evidence of the other party, and Winter Soldier went to support Phil Coulson with the evidence. When the Winter Soldier was about to arrive, Phil Coulson led people into Killian's company, but the other party had already run away. In Kamartaj, far away from the United States, a space door opens. The Golden Magician transformed by Levi came out of the space door. After he walked out of the space door, the Ancient One also walked out. Ancient One asked, "What do you think of other latitudes?" Levi replied casually, "Not very good, it's all weird." The 1-year period has expired and you can leave Camartage. Can I go? Ancient One nodded with a smile. Levi immediately opened a space door, looked back at Ancient One and said uncertainly, then I'm really leaving. Finally let yourself go to another dimension to clean up the black slave workers and go home. Ancient One reminded me, don't forget what you promised me. Forget it. I won't interfere at will. Levi waved his hand, and after getting into the space door shrank and disappeared. However, when Levi returned to the United States, he looked around and was dumbfounded. How about such a big sea view villa? After finally finishing my studies and working part-time, I found that my home was gone. Still the kind that was razed to the ground. Looking at the steel battlesuit parts scattered on the ground, how could one not know that Tony had gone through a fierce battle? But in the end it must be Tony's victory. Levi saw that the arc reactor without energy on the ground was damaged in a different way than other parts on the ground. Those parts were all blown up and had black burn marks on the surface. However, this arc reactor was stabbed by a very sharp weapon and had no traces of high-temperature burns. Exactly who Tony is fighting is up for debate. Could it be A.F. Enoch? Levi guessed. Opening another space door, Levi got in. This time Levi goes straight to the Stark building. Levi searched around the building, and only when he saw Fiyu and a middle-aged man with a square face did he learn what had happened recently. Levi hurriedly went to the medical room to visit Happy. He hadn't seen Happy for a long time. He was a little fatter. He was lying comfortably on the hospital bed. If he hadn't been breathing, he would have been as peaceful as dead. Happy. Levi patted Happy's shoulder gently, but Happy didn't move at all. Fiyu stood outside the door and informed Happy of his occasional awakenings. The waking hours had no commonality and were completely random. Regarding Happy's experience, Levi felt that his survival was the best outcome. After learning about Pepper from Fiyu again, Levi's frown deepened and his eyes were full of worry. Leaving the medical room, Levi contacted Tony through JARVIS. But Tony couldn't be contacted at all, and Captain America answered the phone instead. Captain America told Levi about Tony's current situation. Levi's voice suddenly turned cold and asked, "Where is Tony now?" "I have arrived at the Stark building." "You're back." Upon learning of Levi's return, Captain America immediately told him the current location of the Avengers base. "We'll be there soon." Levi hung up the phone, opened a space door and got in directly. Looking at the space passage that opened in front of him, Captain America was stunned for a moment, and then a man in a black robe walked out. "Levi." Captain America tried calling. "It's me, what happened to Tony?" Levi cancelled the transformation and walked to the hospital bed. The doctor said he passed out due to overwork and excitement. Captain America stood up to make way for Levi. After all, these two are cousins and can be considered family members. Levi sat in his seat and looked at the sleeping Tony. He still didn't know when he would wake up. "I didn't expect that something like this would happen to Tony after I hadn't contacted him for a few days." Captain America could see that Levi was suppressing his anger now, so he had to persuade him to prevent Levi from doing anything too extreme. "Levi, the Avengers have declared war on those terrorists at the press conference. Everyone is actively preparing for war. I can avenge Tony. Then as soon as possible, I will take the lead." Levi sat on the stool as if he was accompanying Tony tonight. Captain America nodded and left the room consciously. Now counting Levi, Captain America is very confident to defeat the enemy. Levi's unexpected space door alone is enough to give the opponent a headache. What's more, Levi's combat effectiveness should have been greatly improved after this year, not just the space gate. Levi looked at the sleeping Tony, a little dazed for a moment, and various scenes of getting along with Tony in the past emerged in his mind. In the end, the memories of Pepper and Happy still appeared in my mind. The more this happens, the greater the hatred in my heart becomes, until it is completely buried in my heart. Chapter 73. Who do you think will win this bet between Rambo and Toby? If you ask me, those two guys will probably lose. Test subject number 1 and test subject number 2 are not stable. If all the experiments fail, that lizard monster Connors will probably die too. I heard the Godfather's time is running out. I don't know who will take over after the Godfather dies. It must be the dragon, after all, he is the strongest. In terms of reputation, I am more convinced of Master Wu, who has a good brain. That guy Long just knows how to have fun, but he actually has no brains. While the two of them were chatting behind the monitor, a cold voice suddenly came from behind them. I think I'm pretty good too, how about you choose me? In an instant, the two of them froze, as if their necks were equipped with hinges. They slowly turned their heads, only to see a man in black robes looking down at them. Before they could open their mouths, the ice layer followed their feet and extended from bottom to top, completely freezing the two of them and turning them into ice sculptures. After dealing with these two people, Levi opened a space door and threw the two ice sculptures to the North Pole. After taking a look at the dozen or so screens on the wall, Levi opened the door to the monitoring room and began to sweep through the floors. This is a company acquired by the Afi Enoch organization. On the surface, these 460 companies are institutions engaged in drug production and research, but in fact they are conducting human experiments behind the scenes. Some stowaways, homeless people abducted by the Enoch organization, and disabled soldiers deceived by the military were all used for human experiments here. The AF Enoch organization has close ties with Killian, and there is military power behind Killian. Those disabled soldiers were trapped in the nesting doll like this. The company here was also a clue that Tony discovered before he fainted. After 2 hours of exploration by Levi and the support of the woman who had a one-night stand with Tony, he was finally confirmed. There is a high probability that Pepper will be imprisoned here. After breaking the door lock, Levi pushed the door open and entered. As soon as the security guards in the room reacted, they saw a flame instantly covering their sight. Other rooms are like this, with ice, fire, thunder and lightning taking turns. However, Levi only swept the 3rd floor, and the alarm in the building suddenly rang for some reason. Then the sound of footsteps came in unison, and a group of people surrounded the stairway. Kamen Rider. The leader reacted immediately when he saw Levi's appearance. Levi's assassination plan A has failed. Assassination plan B is launched. The gravity magic circle summons the method of pressing K directly towards the opponent. The security captain who recognized Levi immediately transformed into Enoch, the crab who looked like a mechanical weirdo. And his men's eyes all glowed red, and their bodies instantly heated up. Extremis and AF Enoch. Levi sneered, waved his arm, and the gravity magic circle suppressed everyone on the other side, pressing them firmly to the ground and unable to get up. Then Levi stretched out his hands, 2 icy blue light balls condensed in his hands, and cold air flowed down his hands. To cool you down. The light ball was launched and landed on the gravity magic array. The magic array suddenly changed and expanded instantly. The cold air washed over the 1,000 people who were pressed down. Soon those extremis users who were already red hot were frozen by the cold air. The stairs are covered with ice and turned into a slide. Without the continuous cooling of the magic circle, the ice is dissolving quickly and easily visible to the naked eye. Levi opened the space door again, this time the space door led to the Atlantic Ocean. A gust of wind magic blew and threw these shrimps, soldiers, and crabs into the Atlantic Ocean. After dealing with the wave, just as he stepped onto the 2nd floor, Levi was stopped by an Orpheus Enoch again. Seeing this Orpheus, Enoch Levi said coldly, I didn't expect to meet you so soon. It's so great. The last 3 words seemed to bring joy, but they made people feel creepy. Feel. I must kill you this time. The crocodile AF Enoch faced Levi directly, and a crocodile skull-like weapon in his hand bit towards Levi. Levi dodged, dodging the opponent's attack, and then put his hand in front of the belt buckle. A golden magic circle appeared, and Levi pulled out a battle axe from it. This is the Golden Magician's exclusive weapon, the Halberd of Death. Hold the Death Halberd tightly and strike directly at Fish Afi's head. SA. The crocodile Afi's head was hit hard, and its hard armor blocked the attack, but Levi's next move had already arrived, and he held a scimitar outlined with yellow energy in his other hand and slashed towards its neck. Stab! The crocodile Afi leaned back, and the blade swiped across the crocodile Afi's neck, creating a spark. Following a kick, the huge force knocked the crocodile Afi to the ground. Then he waved his hands, a magic circle appeared, and the flames blasted towards the crocodile Afi. The movements are coherent without any stagnation, as if they have already thought about what will happen and what they are going to do in advance. Boom! The flames engulfed the crocodile Afi who just got up from the ground. The barbecue lasted for more than 10 seconds. After the flames disappeared, only ashes and charred passages were left. Stepping on the ashes of Afi the crocodile, and then kicking the ashes of Afi the crocodile. Levi also guessed that the opponent can be resurrected, but what if it is resurrected again? Kill it for the first time, and now for the second time. If it can be resurrected, then kill it again. After not stopping for long, Levi went straight to the laboratory after clearing away all the unsightly soldiers. Although there were obstacles during the period, they were not as good as the crocodile Effie, and they were not even Levi's first-in-command enemy. Pepper was not found in Levi's laboratory here. There are different experimental subjects in each observation room, and some are even the products of multiple integrates, including vampires. Orpheus, Enoch, one of the experimental subjects only retained the characteristics of humans being able to walk upright, with green skin with scales, a red core on the chest, a bat head, and sharp blade-like weapons on the wrists and ankles. He threw out magic to clean up the monsters tied to the experimental table. After finding no more targets, Levi could only let J.A.R.V.I.S record the experimental data here and upload it to the Stark building server. Then Levi opened a space door and appeared outside the building. This building is located in Brooklyn, New York, near the riverbank and surrounded by closed factories. A magic circle flew to the top of the building. After the magic stopped, it gradually expanded until it exceeded the entire building. The golden magic array separated into another small secondary array and moved down to the bottom of the building. After the magic circle stabilized, as Levi's hands clapped together tightly, the two magic circle pushed the building uprooted and slowly rose up, instantly squeezing the building and turning it into ruins. This is just another use of gravity magic. The assassination plan is completed. After solving this stronghold and not finding Pepper, Levi opened a space door again and returned to the Avengers base. Levi's solo actions could not be hidden from others and were quickly exposed. Captain America was also helpless about this. Who allowed the information Levi obtained from that building to be used as evidence? Levi, never act alone again. Don't forget that we are a team. After Captain America finished talking to Levi, he was ready to find trouble with those military bosses. He also wants others to know that he is not a reckless man who only knows how to fight. Chapter 74. After sorting out the evidence, Captain America held another press conference to announce the collected evidence directly to the public. This straightforward and decisive style of doing things, not wanting people to live in lies, is indeed the style of Captain America. This time, even with pressure from the government, there is no way to control the spread of public opinion. Various newspapers, magazines, and media under Stark Industries are reporting on this matter. Captain America directly requested the government to hand over the murderer for a public trial. Due to the ferment of public opinion, the government had to come forward to clarify. No one can underestimate the impact of Captain America. It seems that what can make Captain America have such an influence in the hearts of the people is not the military's momentum building. They also shot themselves in the foot. Those military bosses had no choice but to introduce a scapegoat, and this scapegoat was Killian. But Captain America obviously doesn't want to let go of these military bosses, and will continue to pursue accountability and find out the protective umbrella behind Killian. It's just that no one insisted on Captain America's approach. The government was silent and the military acted like it couldn't hear it. Nick Fury knows this trick of the United States best. Under his persuasion, Captain America can only do the next best thing. Even if he cannot kill the opponent, he still has to peel off a layer of skin. It is quite difficult to kill these veterans of the military. Nick Fury thinks that it is good to settle for the next best thing. He can get some benefits and stop in time, and then he can kill them with a stick next time he finds an opportunity. If a fight to the death continues, it will be difficult for the Avengers to get along in any country in the future. What's more, Nick Fury has obtained some information through some means, and the government is preparing to restrict the Avengers, but it still lacks some excuses to do so. Super ability crimes are getting more and more intense, as if they suddenly broke out after the Battle of New York. All kinds of super ability people have surfaced, including mutations, technology, high IQ. Now even the president has been captured. The military sent Colonel Rhodes to drive War Machine, now renamed Iron Patriot, to protect the president, but he was also captured. The military couldn't find any clues, and was messed up by Captain America again. The battered performance also reflected the military's incompetence. Found it. Killian, the wanted criminal, is now hiding on the high seas of the Pacific. Tony's eyes sparkled. Tony, who had already woken up, had no time to rest at all and was concentrating on searching for Pepper's location. Through the accumulation of some clues, Pepper was not found but Killian's location was determined. I guess Pepper and Rhodes are also there. Levi probably wouldn't find the clues so easily, don't you think those clues were obtained too easily? It's like someone gave them to SHIELD. Tony definitely discovered this, and so did Nick Fury. But Nick Fury doesn't say anything, he just wants to get some benefits now. It's impossible for Nick Fury not to notice, he just wants to exchange something from me. Then put the braised eggs away and we go directly to Killian. No, before that we need to go back to the Stark building to pick up something. Levi nodded, then transformed into a golden magician, opened the space door and took Tony back to the Stark building. Tony first took out a tube of light yellow reagent and injected it into Happy. This was the stabilizer Tony made for Happy in his spare time. Facts have proved that nothing can stump Tony. If there is, it must be the limitation of the times. It is just the stabilizer of Extremis. Even if it is a little more difficult because of Enoch's genes, it is just a waste of a few hours. Then Tony threw the cannon base-like equipment to Levi. This is the enhancement device I made for you. Although the maximum strength cannot reach your panting green eternity, there is an advantage that your form cannot compare with. After taking over the equipment, Levi looked at it carefully and easily know how to use it. There is a red button on the device, which looks familiar to Levi. This is a self-destruction. Tony interrupted directly, this piece of equipment has two modes. This button is the extreme mode. Once this mode is turned on, you must end the battle as soon as possible. When the time is up, your transformation will be forcibly ended. The other mode will kill Del when the performance of the Tower or Emperor of Heaven is maximized, the time in this mode will be longer, about 10 minutes. How long will the first pattern last? Tony was a little embarrassed and said, 10 seconds, is that enough? What Tony didn't expect was that Levi happily accepted these 10 seconds, that's enough, let that be Killian pay for these 10 seconds. The space door opened over the Pacific Ocean. According to the satellite's lock, the two quickly found a slowly sailing cargo ship. *0 number 1. The two did not inform Captain America about this operation and planned to take revenge on their own. The hooks on the many container tower strings on the freighter swing with the sway of the ship. Killian has been forced to such an extent that he even got on a freighter. Levi mocked. Tony also gloated, it's just a thrown joker. It's your own fault that you ended up in this situation. This is not to blame someone who only thought about picking up girls all day long when he was young, otherwise there would be so much trouble. Who would destroy a promising future at all costs just to give themselves a break? Humph, this guy can't deal with me. He only vents his anger on the people around me. What a coward. Why doesn't he come to you? If he dares to come, I will hang his head on the flagpole of the White House. The two of them were bickering word by word while watching the sailing freighter in the air. After Tony woke up, he could see that Levi's behavior was a bit extreme. Knowing that this was not good, Tony forced himself to calm down and pretended to be in control, so that Levi could slowly regain his previous peace and calmness. The small detectors and drones flying out of the steel battlesuit quickly transmitted the records of the cargo ship's manned locations back to Tony's helmet. Seeing the point marked by the freighter, Tony directly projected it to Levi. After confirming the position, Tony said, "These people have all been injected with Extremis. No need to hold back, we will solve them all." "Did Pepper find it?" Levi asked. "Found it, Pepper, Rhodes and our beloved president are all locked up in the cabin below." Tony spoke with a slight tremor, "Damn it, Pepper was actually injected with Extremis. Then what do we say?" Tony took out 3 injections of reagent from the launcher in his arm and said, "Act as planned, I brought Extremis stabilizer, it's up to me to rescue them." Levi nodded and immediately flew towards the freighter, while Tony turned on the battlesuit's optical invisibility technology and sneaked in. On the bow of the ship, Levi swaggered down behind a person and opened the space door at his feet. The sudden weightlessness made the person fall in before he could react. He fell into the sea with a plop, and when he opened his mouth, only endless water poured in, and the gurgling sound in his throat was completely drowned. The first corpse. Chapter 75. After finishing one person, Levi didn't stay long and threw the hidden sentry hidden above the container into the sea in the same way. The people on the deck were quickly cleared, and all the hidden sentries were killed. It was easy to notice the sudden loss of so many people, but now it was too late to notice, there was only one bear commander left. Things went smoothly on Levi's side, but Killian discovered Tony as soon as he entered the place where Pepper and others were being held. Tony and Killian had a big fight, and with the help of the optimized version of Extremis, Killian was not afraid of Tony at all. The Mark 44 that Tony wore this time also had extremely powerful firepower. It was a battlesuit that was completely modified for combat. The laser cut off Killian's arm. The cut was smooth, and not a drop of blood spurted out. The whole red arm just fell to the floor, and the floor was quickly burned into a 893. The cave is booming. Killian's expression became more ferocious, and several tumors appeared on his broken arm. Then, as if he was reborn from a cocoon, a brand new arm quickly formed. What do you think of the evolutionary equation I made based on Enoch's gene, lizard potion, and extremis, Tony? Killian smiled evilly, and it was obvious that he was very proud of this evolutionary equation. Tony said in disgust, "Your melting face made me think you had eaten some kind of zombie virus." Seeking death. Killian rushed towards Tony, not worried about being hurt at all. The small propeller on Tony's arm activated, and he punched out with a heavy punch, knocking Killian away as he flew towards him. Killian's whole body was so hot that he hit the iron wall and made a hole in the wall. Tony quickly went to rescue Pepper in the dormant cabin. The other two people were hung in the room and passed out. Their treatment was obviously not as good as Pepper's. The President and Rhodes were all covered in injuries, probably from being tortured, and the President's injuries were much lighter than those of Rhodes. "Believe me, I will definitely save you." Seeing his lover close at hand, Tony beat the glass of the dormant cabin frantically in an attempt to wake up Pepper, but she didn't move. Killian stood up and pulled a wrench on the wall. Then a mechanism was activated, the ceiling of the cabin opened, and Pepper, Rhodes and the President were all pulled up quickly by chains. Upon seeing this, Tony activated the laser and was about to cut off the transmission teeth, but at this moment a firebomb was thrown over, grazing Tony's arm and scratching his battlesuit. Bang! The arm parts of the steel battlesuit were damaged, and the laser module was scrapped. When he turned around, he saw a lion-like AF Enoch looking at him eagerly. Killian stood beside it. At the moment Killian's face seemed to be burned, and his entire face looked like a red skeleton. "You look so similar to the Red Skull who was defeated by Captain America 70 years ago. Are you a relative? Are you imitating him?" When Tony spoke, the launch hole on the back of the battlesuit opened, and 2 missiles were fired like swords. "Launch it at the lions Orpheus, Enoch, and Killian." After launching the missile, Tony immediately caught up with the pulled-up dormant cabin without stopping, and wanted to drag the dormant cabin down directly. "You are Red Skull, but I am not Captain America. I have a smarter way to deal with you." Tony called the dormant and finally showed a relieved smile after saving Pepper. "Ah! What the hell is this?" Fack. Killian was affected by the missile that exploded in advance, and the strong acidic substance dissolved Killian's flesh and bones in an instant. Killian's body is constantly repairing and dissolving again. Even if his arm is broken, there is no such pain. Killian roared crazily, and the strong acid dissolution made him miserable. Afi the lion reacted much faster than Killian. He jumped up and jumped from the open ceiling to the container outside. Then a fire bomb was fired at Tony. The powerful flames forced Tony to block it. If he dodged, it would be Pepper who was attacked. Call the flame bombs roared in, but a space door appeared almost at the same time as the flame bombs. Sea water jumped out from the space door, covering the flame bombs for 10 seconds and filling the surroundings with water vapor. Tony hugged Pepper and left here quickly. "Levi, don't forget those two!" Tony shouted. Levi also stood on the container and pouted. This guy knew that he was looking out for his wife, and Rhodes, a good brother, didn't care about her at all. That's right, Levi didn't even mention the unfamiliar president. The Lion AF fired another fire bomb at Levi, and Levi drew the original, and a golden circle appeared and the fire was dancing. The Lion AF breaks through the flames, and the hungry tiger rushes towards Levi. Levi took off a ring and put it on his hand, then put the hand with the ring on the front of his belt. Strike sorcerer! A magic circle appeared under his feet, and golden energy wrapped around his feet. Levi jumped up with all his strength, and when he fell rapidly, he kicked the Lion AF into the sea. Killian also got rid of the acid bomb at this time. He just tore off his own flesh and blood before getting rid of it. Killian stood next to the operating console of the freighter, pulled a wrench, and shouted at the same time, "Tony Stark! Let's see how many you can save." "Crazy BD!" Tony yelled angrily. Rhodes and the president watched as they fell into the sea. With quick eyesight and quick hands, Levi opened the space gate on the sea, and Rhodes and the president fell into the space gate. Levi simply opened the destination portal above the freighter. Rhodes and the president fell freely, fell downward again, and then fell into the space gate on the sea surface, and then came out and fell again, and so on. This scene made Killian dumbfounded. He never thought that things would develop like this. Tony also breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. If the president dies, he will be a tool anyway, but Rhodes cannot live without him. Even if he has a kitten or puppy, he can't let go of the relationship he has had for so many years. Red 0.9 skinned, let's see what else you can do. Tony felt refreshed. The continued sense of loss also made Rhodes and the president wake up and notice their own situation and Tony and Levi over there. Rhodes knew that he had been rescued. But why is the rescued self falling repeatedly? Rhodes looked at the president below and saw the president clutching his chest and strangling his neck. Rhodes suddenly felt bad. With a wow sound, the president vomited out, and the food residue with the stinky smell of stomach acid and gastric juice spurted out. Rhodes' face was pale, and the pile of vomit was pouring towards his head, but he always kept a certain distance. Hurry, save me. Tony shook his head and said, Rod, believe me, I will never jump into a place with vomit to save you. Law. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.